Chapter 459. Huai voice was extremely gentle, like a lover whispering into one's ears, causing people to feel as though they were bathing in the spring breeze. But the few people present felt as though they were being cut by a knife, extremely sharp and cold. Lu Yiwen's face became ugly. He asked softly, "Miss Huai, what is the meaning of this? I feel that there is something fishy going on." Huai spoke without hesitation. "I have already investigated the matter regarding the competition. You ordered people to secretly prevent Su Yun from winning against Han Yuxian, but Su Yun did not do so. So you colluded with the person in charge of the Yushuang auction house, Du Wenin, and got Qin Si to kill Su Yun, attempting to refine his 3 spirits and 7 spirits to punish him. But Su Yun did not let you do as you wished. Qin Si was killed, and seeing that, you flew into a rage. So you got Du Wenin to frame Su Yun, saying that he used underhanded methods to win the competition. I'm extremely clear of Su Yun's character. He will definitely not do such a thing. You have framed Su Yun time and time again, and framed our Huai family's esteemed guest. How can this be a misunderstanding?" Speaking till here, Huai voice rose by an octave. Her originally gentle voice became extremely cold. The terrifying thing about her was that her gentleness concealed a sharp blade. Everyone present was startled. The young miss of the Huai family's face changed faster than flipping a book. Lu Yiwen's face became even uglier. His eyes secretly moved, as though he was thinking of a countermeasure. He never thought that in the small New Deer City, dealing with a nobody would actually provoke a big shot like the Huai family. The Huai family was extremely powerful and had good relations with the various big shots. And this lady was not simple either. If he could not provoke her, he would not provoke her. He would admit defeat. At most, he would lose a bit of face and lose some cultivation coins, but it was better not to become enemies with the Huai family. Lu Yuan thought, then cupped his fists and lowered his head. "Miss Huai, it is all my fault. I have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai, and have wrongly accused young noble Su Yun. I will apologize to young noble Su Yun right now." With that, Lu Yuan turned and bowed to Su Yun. Su Yun. When the other Chamber of Commerce presidents saw this, they did not dare to make a sound. If the Huai family was the big fish and the Flowing Night aristocratic family was the small fish, then they were the shrimp. Even the Flowing Night aristocratic family had to admit defeat, so what qualifications did they have to speak? Huai looked at Lu Yiwen indifferently and said, "Just a bow is enough? If I didn't come today, wouldn't my Huai family's guest have died in your hands?" When Lu Yiwen heard this, his heart was somewhat angry, but he endured it and respectfully asked, "I wonder what young lady wants Lu Yiwen to do to quell the anger in my heart." "Compensate 300 million cultivation coins, 100 immortal grade treasures, and 100 immortal grade pills," Huai said in a neutral tone. 300 million cultivation coins? 100 immortal grade Dharma treasures and medicinal pills? This was simply an exorbitant demand. Su Yun was secretly shocked. In the end, he was someone who came from the Sky Martial continent. To put it bluntly, he had never seen much of the world. When had he ever heard of such compensation? This was a complete extortion. Although the Flowing Night aristocratic family was a chamber of commerce, and its scale was not small, but it could not withstand such a torment. 300 million cultivation coins was equivalent to a third of the Chamber of Commerce's assets. How could Lu Yiwen agree to it? "Young lady Huai, this seems a little too much." Lu Yiwen's eyes finally revealed an unconcealable anger. "What? You don't agree?" Huai said indifferently. "I hope young lady Huai can retract her request. If it is a little lighter, Lu Yiwen will consider it." "No. Those who offend our Huai family must accept the punishment." Seeing that Huai was not letting him go, Lu Yiwen turned his head and cupped his fists. Then forgive Lu Yiwen for not being able to comply. But in the next second, a gust of wind blew over and directly struck his face. Huh! Lu Yiwen was caught off guard and was slapped by the gust of wind, causing him to fall to the ground. "Young master." Baishan anxiously helped Lu Yiwen up and asked anxiously, "Young master, are you all right?" Who hit me?" Lu Yiwen held onto his red face and anxiously stood up. He looked around and bellowed. "It's me," Huai Ro Mu Yu said indifferently as she retracted her slender hands. Hearing that, Lu Yiwen became anxious. "You young lady Huai Ro, what are you doing? I will only ask you one last time. Do you agree or not?" Huai Ro Mu Yu replied indifferently. "Don't even think about it." Lu Yiwen was completely infuriated. He felt that he was being humiliated by Huai Ro Mu Yu. He was also a young man. His cultivation relied on cultivation coins to rush up. His temperament was not strong. Facing Huai Ro Mu Yu's humiliation, how could he endure it for a third time? He immediately roared out. "Good." Huai Ro Mu Yu seemed to have been waiting for him to say that, and immediately shouted, "Since it's like that, don't blame me for being impolite." With that, Huai Ro Mu Yu immediately raised her slender hands and bellowed, "Go!" In that moment, the bodyguards beside her all rushed forward and attacked Lu Yiwen. Seeing that, Lu Yiwen no longer pretended to be a gentleman. He immediately roared, "Hor Huai Ro, I called you young lady because this young noble thinks highly of you. Who do you think you are? Good. Since you want to play, then this young noble will accompany you. Go, teach Huai Ro Mu Yu a lesson. This young noble will bear all the consequences." The people beside Lu Yiwen were not to be outdone and rushed forward. Both parties stood in a circle. Upon seeing that, the few chairmen's faces changed and immediately retreated. Only New Deer Auction House's Zhang Hong was as anxious as an ant on a hot walk. He immediately shouted, the two of you, please stop fighting, stop fighting." However, his words did not have any weight, and no one cared about him. The scene was extremely chaotic. Because the people participating in the battle were experts with fighting strength exceeding 6,000, the battle was extremely intense. All the spirit cultivators on the streets of New Deer City all retreated. No one dared to watch, afraid of being affected. No one from New Deer City's defense force dared to step out, regardless of whether it was the Flowing Night aristocratic family or the Huai Ro family. They were not people they could afford to offend. The battle seemed to be in a stalemate. Both parties were fighting intensely, and after a period of time, the Huai Ro family actually seemed to be in a disadvantageous position. What's going on? Regardless of treasures or cultivation, the Huai Ro family's people were stronger than the Flowing Night aristocratic family. Furthermore, they had more people than Lu Yiwen. How could they not win? Su Yin was suspicious. A shout came out from the side. Following that, Huai Ro Mu Yu raised her crystal sword and rushed towards Lu Yiwen. What? Huai Ro Mu Yu is actually going up personally? Does she really want to seek justice for me? Su Yin became more and more surprised and even more suspicious. Huai Ro Mu Yu raised her crystal sword and passed through the crowd, straight towards Lu Yiwen. Her movements were extremely ruthless. She did not hold back at all. The sword tip was aimed straight at Lu Yiwen's heart, filled with spirit chi. Lu Yiwen calmly dodged and unleashed his treasure to defend. Although he had already fallen out with Huai Ro Mu Yu, but in the end, he still did not dare touch her. But Huai Ro Mu Yu was like a troublesome lioness. She chased after Lu Yiwen relentlessly. She raised her jade-white finger, and on her index finger there was a ruby ring that flashed. Following that, a circle of red light leaked out and struck towards Lu Yiwen. Lu Yiwen was enveloped by the red light. Then his entire being froze, as though someone had pressed the pause button. Huai Ro Mu Yu's eyes congealed. She stared at Lu Yiwen. The crystal sword in her hand flew out as fast as lightning. "Young master!" Seeing that, Bai Shan shouted out and immediately pounced forward, the blade in his hand slashing towards Huai Ro Mu Yu's crystal sword. His speed was fast, but in terms of cultivation, he was not Huai Ro Mu Yu's opponent. He was unable to stop the blade in time. However, at this critical moment, Huai Ro Mu Yu, who was supposed to attack Lu Yiwen, suddenly turned. Her body actually inched closer to the blade. What? Su Yun's eyes congealed. He wanted to rush forward to block the blade, but just as he was about to move, he anxiously stopped and watched from his original position. Poochie, an ear-piercing sound came out. The sharp blade left a few inches of fresh red wound on Huai Ro Mu Yu's jade white back. "Young miss," Seeing that, the Huai-Ro family's guards' eyes all turned red. It was as though all of them had exploded. They immediately pushed their opponents back and rushed towards Huai-Ro Muyu. Seeing that, Su Yun did not hesitate. He rushed forward like a gust of wind, carried her, and retreated. Good. Is the Liuye family trying to rebel? You actually dare to plot against our family's young miss. The girl, Xiao Yin, shouted angrily. Bai Shan was stunned, but he had already done it. He did not care, and said coldly, Your family's young miss wants to kill my family's young master. How can I sit back and watch? Damn it. Xiao Yin was furious. She wanted to rush forward and kill Bai Shan. But just then, Huai-Ro Muyu immediately grabbed her arm and said softly, Go. Young miss, listen to me, go. Huai-Ro Muyu said gently. Hearing that, Xiao Yin bit her lips and could only nod her head. Su Yin, you come with me. If not, if we meet the Quick Blade sect, no one will protect you. Huai-Ro Muyu said to Su Yin. Su Yin laughed bitterly and nodded. After making the decision, Huai-Ro Muyu was supported into the carriage by Xiao Yin. Without saying a word, she brought her team and left. They came and went quickly. The few presidents looked at each other. All of them were perspiring. Zhang Hong heaved a sigh of relief. He looked around and broke out in cold sweat. He thought that the conflict between the two parties would destroy the entire New Deer City. He did not expect it to end so quickly. Just then, the red light that enveloped Lu Yi disappeared. Young master, are you all right, young master? Bai Shan and the rest anxiously rushed over and asked with concern. But without saying a word, Lu Yi directly slapped Bai Shan's face fiercely. Pa! Bai Shan fell to the ground. His face was burning hot as he looked at Lu Yi in shock. Lu Yi's eyes were red as he shouted angrily, You trash idiot! Idiot! Our Lu Yi family is going to die because of you. Chapter 460. In the clear sky, Su Yin stepped on his flying sword, crossed his arms in front of his chest, and dozed off. The fierce battle from before consumed a lot of spirit qi, and after leaving the competition, he encountered a mess of things. It was truly exhausting, so he took this time to rest. Huai-Ro Muyu did not move after entering the carriage. He reckoned that she was healing her injuries. The injury on her back was not considered serious, and it would heal in less than an incense stick of time. Young Master Su. Just then, a soft voice came from his side. Su Yin opened his eyes, only to see the servant Xiao Yin standing beside him, looking at him with a face full of smiles. Oh, it's Sister Xiao Yin, what's the matter? Su Yin teased. Young Master Su, don't be like this, just call me Xiao Yin. Xiao Yin smiled, then said softly, Young Master Su, our family's young miss invites you to the carriage for a chat. Get in? Su Yin heard and was stunned. Although this was the ultimate martial world, most female cultivators would avoid gossip. But thinking about it carefully, Huai-Ro Muyu was not afraid of others gossiping. As a man, what was there for him to be afraid of? Immediately, Su Yin nodded and drilled into the carriage. His movements were swift and skillful. When the curtain was lifted, a light voice came from inside. How did you get in? Su Yin was puzzled. Didn't young miss ask me to come in? How'd you get in so fast? Huai-Ro Muyu hurriedly tidied up her clothes and stared at Su Yin with some reproach. Su Yin laughed dryly, but did not explain. He looked at the carriage, only to see that the decorations inside the carriage were very elegant and exquisite. The space inside the carriage seemed to be at least twice as big as the outside. It should have been treated by some kind of technique, so it did not seem very crowded, and the inside of the carriage was isolated from the outside. Even if it was noisy outside, it would not affect the inside of the carriage. Huai-Ro Muyu sat cross-legged in front of a purple wooden table. The wooden table was carved with a phoenix pattern. It was very beautiful, and on the table there was a jade-colored teapot. The mouth of the teapot was billowing green smoke, and two teacups were placed opposite each other. Huai-Ro Muyu's white face revealed a faint blush. Her expression was indifferent. She extended her hand out to pick up the teapot and poured a cup of tea for the both of them. I never thought that after being separated for so long, we would meet again so quickly. Su Yin, how have you been? Huai-Ro Muyu asked softly. Thank you for your concern, Miss Huai-Ro. I am fine. Suyin drank a mouthful of tea and said. He glanced at the tea and realized that after drinking a cup of tea, the spirit essence in his body was actually enveloped by a warm current. It was extremely comfortable and relieved most of his fatigue. It was extremely mystical, but he did not dare to be rude. Although he had a good relationship with Huai Romuyu, but friendship was friendship, there was still a huge gap between the two of them. For today's matter, I have to thank Miss Huai Ro for lending a hand. If not I, Suyun, would have died in New Deer City. Oh, right, I wonder how Miss Huai Ro's injuries are. It's nothing serious. Oh. Suyun glanced at her and asked, Why are you here? I just had some small matters to attend to, that's all. Huai Romuyu's expression did not change as she spoke gently. She did not continue on the topic and casually said, Suyun, you have trained in the divine wind sword technique. Your speed is extremely fast. Just now, I was attacked by the Flowing Yi family. Why didn't you save me? With your speed, it should have been extremely easy for you to save me. Save? Muyu, you were the one who stuck yourself to Bai Shan's blade. Why should I save you? If I had saved you, wouldn't you blame me? Suyin said. Hearing that, Huai Romuyu blinked her eyes. Oh? You could tell? I couldn't see it clearly, but from my understanding of you, it is not as simple as I thought. You are not a petty person. On the contrary, you are very astute. At that time, Lu Yuan had already shown weakness. If you truly wanted to stand up for me, you could have stopped the moment he gave in. But you did not stop. Instead, you became even more infuriated, Lu Yuan, and raised a request that he could not fulfill. From the looks of it, I feel that you are using the pretense of standing up for me to do something else, but I do not know what your final goal is. Suyin said. Huai Romuyu looked at him quietly. After a long while, she nodded her head and said, You guessed it right, regardless of whether it was the blade or Lu Yuan, they were all done intentionally by me. And my goal is the Flowing Yi family. Flowing Yi family? Yes. Huai Romuyu poured another cup of tea for Suyun and said slowly, The Flowing Yi family is located in the Beizhou city and is the closest merchant city to Beiyang. The Flowing Yi family controls almost 80% of the city's economy, and the city's construction system, defense system, trading system, and so on are all managed by the Flowing Yi family. The Huairou aristocratic family is already very large and has swallowed many large and small merchant guilds in the past few years. Their strength is extremely robust, but a tall tree attracts the wind, and on the surface, everyone respects the Huairou family. But in reality, there are many hidden threats. If the Huairou family does not continue to grow, they will be destroyed by these threats. So, in order to further develop the Huairou family, my hope is to quickly enter the market of Beiyang, but the social class in Beiyang is much higher than the social class in the Gathering Heart region, and the cultivators we face are much stronger, and the merchant guilds are even more powerful. In order to gain a foothold in Beiyang, we need to prepare a base in advance. We cannot take down any city in Beiyang, and currently, the only place that we have a foothold in is the Beizhou city where the Flowing Yi family is located. With that, we can plot against Beiyang. So in order to take down the economy of the Beizhou city, we need an excuse. The Flowing Yi family actually has a lot of potential, and the Beizhou city that they are in is a city that is blessed by the heavens. It is connected to the Gathering Heart region on the outside and Beiyang on the inside, and people from all walks of life can come into contact with them. The flow of people is extremely large, and the time that the Flowing Yi family has developed is far less than our Huairou family, but their strength has increased by leaps and bounds. I predict that in less than 100 years, the Flowing Yi family's strength will surpass our Huairou family. And if we do not get rid of this potential opponent, our Huairou family will be attacked from all sides. However, the Flowing Yi family's methods are not shallow. Every year at the end of the year, the Flowing Yi family will send a large amount of cultivation coins, treasures, and pills to the Huairou family as a tribute, and build a good relationship with the Huairou family. When they send the tribute, they make a big fuss, and everyone knows that the Huairou family and the Flowing Yi family have a good relationship. So on the surface, the Huairou family does not dare to touch the Flowing Yi family. We're businessmen most particular about. It's all about credibility. Without credibility, how do you do business? How do you convert cultivation coins? If we recklessly touch the flowing Yi family, the Huai-Ro family's thousands of years of reputation will be destroyed, so we have one less excuse. And today, Su Yun, your matter is our excuse. He, Lu Yuan, did not differentiate between right and wrong and framed my Huai-Ro family's esteemed guest. After being obstructed by me, Huai-Ro Mu Yu, he flew into a rage out of humiliation and wanted to kill someone. If this matter were to spread out, then the Huai-Ro family will be in the right. And no matter what the flowing Yi family does, we will not have to worry anymore. Hearing that, Su Yun was suddenly enlightened. I feel like I was used by you. Hearing that, Huai-Ro Mu Yu turned her head and said lightly, Don't misunderstand. The main purpose of this time was to save you. The rest was just something I did along the way. Su Yun laughed, but did not refute. But Lu Yiwen is not a fool. My previous actions did not make sense, and he should be able to react very quickly. What I need to do now is to return to the Huai-Ro family as soon as possible and spread the news of Lu Yi when wanting to harm me. I cannot let them take the initiative, and in the following days, I should be using them to deal with the flowing Yi family. I wish you success. Su Yin raised his teacup and said, Thank you for your auspicious words. The two of them drank the tea. All right, Su Yin, why did you come to New Deer City? Is it to participate in a competition? That's right. The main purpose is to raise my fighting strength. I want to enter Beiyang, but my fighting strength is not enough. Su Yin said, Why did you enter Beiyang? Someone said that my parents that I have not seen for many years are most likely in the Emperor Palace. So I plan to go there. I want to see if I can find them. Su Yun's eyes became dim. In truth, after not seeing any traces of his parents for so many years, he did not know if his parents were still alive. Furthermore, he did not know if his parents had been found. Thinking about that, his heart started to feel nervous, excited, and anxious. Although he had experienced a lot, but in front of his parents, he was still a child. So that's how it is. Huai-Ro Mu Yu nodded her head, then said, Within the borders of Beiyang, there are many old friends of the Huai-Ro family. If Su Yun is willing, I can get people to bring you into Beiyang. But the Emperor Palace is not a small sect and has a lot of influence in Beiyang. The Huai-Ro family does not want to provoke the Emperor Palace for the time being. So I am afraid that I am unable to help you in the Emperor Palace. No need. Su Yun smiled. Mu Yu, you have already helped me a lot. I will not trouble you this time. It is better for me to enter Beiyang with my own strength. After all, they're my parents. Furthermore, even if I enter Beiyang without strength, I am afraid it will be difficult to enter the Emperor Palace. Hearing that, Huai-Ro Mu Yu thought for a moment and did not insist. Then, what do you plan to do next? Continue to participate in the competition in other cities? I don't have that thought for now. This competition has allowed me to earn a lot of cultivation coins. I want to absorb all the cultivation coins on me first and see if I can break through. How many cultivation coins? Close to 30 million. So much? Although Huai-Ro Mu Yu was rich and overbearing, this close to 30 million cultivation coins still shocked her. I'm a dark horse. Su Yin rubbed his nose and laughed embarrassedly. Huai-Ro Mu Yu lowered her head and thought for a while, then said, Follow me back to the Huai-Ro family first. If you absorb these cultivation coins by yourself, I'm afraid it will be a waste. You can only absorb 50% to 60% of each cultivation coin. My Huai-Ro family has a training room that specializes in absorbing cultivation coins. You can absorb them inside. You can absorb them completely. Hearing that, Su Yun's heart jumped. He anxiously said, Absorb 100%? Is there really such a good place? I think there is only one in the entire Gather Heart in Beiyang. Huai-Ro Mu Yu said softly. Chapter 461. Huai-Ro Mu Yu's words immediately made Su Yun's mood better. If he could absorb all of these 29 million cultivation coins, it would be enough for him to directly enter the 3rd grade of Spirit Master or even the 4th grade of Spirit Master. Any spirit cultivator would go crazy to advance to the 3rd grade of Spirit Master. Who wouldn't be happy with such speed? However, just as Su Yun was excited about this matter, the carriage suddenly stopped. What's going on? Huai-Ro Mu Yu frowned slightly. She raised her jade finger and pointed at the air. A dark green ripple rippled from her fingertip. Then, The windows on both sides of the carriage opened, and Xiao-Yin walked to the window. Mississippi, Xiao-Yin, what happened? Huayro Muyu asked. There's a group of people in front of us. They stopped the carriage and said they want to see you. Xiao-Yin said. Who are they? They say they are from the Quickblade sect. They are here to seek justice from you. Quickblade sect. Hearing that, Huayro Muyu turned to look at Su-Yun. Su-Yun nodded and said, They are here for me. Do you want to see them? Let's see them. If we can solve it, it might not be a bad thing. After all, with you here, they will reason with me. If you're not here, maybe they will talk to me about knives. Su-Yun laughed. Huayro Muyu nodded slightly, then stood up and walked out of the carriage with Su-Yun. Outside the carriage, the guards had already surrounded the carriage. These guard cultivation was estimated to be around the 4th grade of Spirit Master. There were also some at the 5th grade. They were equipped with powerful magic treasures, and their strength was astonishing. After Huayro Muyu experienced the danger last time, the Huayro family had a new consideration for Huayro Muyu's safety. The guards arranged were all of high cultivation. 200 meters in front of the carriage stood a group of people with thin blades. These people were all wearing gold-trimmed clothes with red, auspicious clouds embroidered on them. There were men and women, and there were about 30 of them. The leader was a middle-aged man with white hair and a goatee. Most of the people behind him were in their 20s or 30s. When Huayro Muyu and the black-cloaked Su-Yun walked out of the carriage, a man immediately whispered something to the silver-haired middle-aged man, his finger pointing at Su-Yun. The man nodded his head lightly and stared at Su-Yun with a fierce look. Huayro Muyu sensed his gaze and frowned. She said lightly, Audacious, you dare to reveal such killing intent in front of me. What? You want to kill me? Hearing that, the man's face turned ugly. He glanced at the guard around Huayro Muyu and could only step forward and cupped his fists. I did not have such intentions. I hope Miss Huayro can forgive me. Who are you people? Huayro Muyu asked. I am the leader of the Quickblade sect. Why are you blocking my carriage? Seek justice for my daughter, Dao Huang. Dao Shi said in a deep voice. My daughter, Dao Huang, participated in the new deer martial arts competition and advanced all the way. In the end, she met Su-Yun and was brutally killed by Su-Yun. I am not convinced, so I asked Miss Huayro for him. If I do not make Su-Yun pay the price today, I will not be convinced. After that, Dao Shi's gaze swept to Su-Yun beside Huayro Muyu again. The blade on his waist was also restless, and it was trembling nonstop. Do you know the relationship between Su-Yun and my Huayro family? Huayro Muyu asked. Dao Shi nodded. Previously, I've already learned from my disciple that Su-Yun is a guest of honor of the Huayro family. That's good, Huayro Muyu said. Since he is a guest of honor, I can't ignore this matter. I deeply regret about your daughter Dao Huang, but with the strength of your sect, it will not be difficult to resurrect Dao Huang. However, after the resurrection, the body will be recast, and the cultivation will be reduced or even disappear. For the spirit cultivators of the ultimate martial world, it is even more unacceptable than destroying their souls. Dao Shi, tell me your idea. How do you plan to deal with Su-Yun to dispel the hatred in your heart? I don't want to make things difficult for you, Miss Huayro. Dao Shi said, I heard from a disciple that Su-Yun is good at using fast swords and is extremely fast. Let me fight with Su-Yun, regardless of life or death. No matter who lives or who dies, let's forget about this matter. How about it? Su-Yun frowned. He was only at the 1st grade of Spirit Master, and the cultivation coins on hand had not been absorbed yet. How could he be a match for the Sect Master? Sect Leader Dao Shi, aren't you going too far? You are a 6th grade Spirit Master, and you are bullying a 1st grade Spirit Master Junior. If this gets out, wouldn't you be laughed at? Huayro Muyu said lightly. 1st grade Spirit Master? Dao Shi was stunned. Su-Yun was wearing Long Zhun's wristband. He couldn't see Su-Yun's cultivation, but Su-Yun won the competition. How could his cultivation be only at the 1st grade Spirit Master? My daughter's strength is not good, but she is also at the 3rd grade Spirit Master. How could Su-Yun only have the strength of the 1st grade Spirit Master? Miss Huayro, don't blame me. There's nothing to blame you for, Su-Yun said calmly, and then took off Long Zhun's wristband. In an instant, the combat power on his certificate and the aura on his body were all exposed. It was indeed the first grade of Spirit Master. Even if there were signs of a breakthrough, it was only at the second grade. Such an existence actually won the competition. This was incredible. Everyone, including the disciples of the Quick Blade sect, was shocked. Tell me about my decision. Huayro Muyu saw the shock on Dao Shi's face and said, there is no need for a duel. Dao Huang's death was purely an accident. After all, it was a competition, a fight, and no one could hold back. If you duel with Su Yun, no matter whether you win or lose, your reputation will be ruined. How about this? On behalf of Su Yun, I compensate your Quick Blade sect with 10 million cultivation coins as compensation for Dao Huang. You can cultivate again if you lose your cultivation. It's just a delay of time. Furthermore, with 10 million cultivation coins, it will be faster to cultivate again. Sect Master Dao Shi, what do you think? This. Dao Shi hesitated. If you don't want to, then please go back. Su Yun will not duel with you. Huayro Muyu said lightly, of course, if you are willing to bear the anger of our Huayro family, you can bring your disciples to attack me. I can guarantee you that tomorrow, the Quick Blade sect will be removed from the ultimate martial world. You can rest assured that I, Huayro Muyu, will do what I say. The gentle voice was like the sound of nature, but it was filled with a bone-chilling, killing intent. Dao Shi's face became more and more ugly. In front of the Huayro family, the Quick Blade sect was nothing, but he believed that the Huayro family was a chamber of commerce that paid attention to credibility and would never make a move against them. That was why he dared to bring people here, but he didn't expect the other party's attitude to be so tough. Sect Master, forget it. 10 million cultivation coins is not a small amount. We could do a lot of things with this money. There is no need to offend the Huayro family for a small Su Yun. At this time, a man with a buzz cut whispered to Dao Shi, Vice Sect Master, do you agree? Dao Shi said, this is the best solution right now, isn't it? In this way, our Quick Blade sect's face can be barely preserved. When Dao Shi heard this, his eyes turned twice. After thinking for a while, he nodded and said, if that's the case, then all right, I will accept Miss Huayro's proposal. Your Huayro family will pay 10 million profound coins as compensation for my daughter. Huayro Muyu nodded. As expected of the Quick Blade sect master, you are indeed straightforward. I will immediately send someone to give you the money. After saying that, Huayro Muyu was about to summon the maid, Xiao Yin. Wait a minute. At this moment, Su Yun, who was next to Huayro Muyu, suddenly spoke. Huayro Muyu, Dao Shi, and the others all looked at him. His face was as calm as water, and there was a trace of determination in his eyes. Regarding Dao Huang's matter, I do not think that I was wrong, because during the competition, Dao Huang also had the attitude of wanting to take my life. If I did not kill her, she would have definitely killed me. And if I were to be killed by her, who would be able to seek justice for me? So Muyu, you don't have to pay this 10 million cultivation coins, because I don't owe them anything at all. When these words fell, it was like a stone stirring up 1,000 ripples. The people of the Quick Blade sect were immediately angry. Brat, what are you talking about? You damn bastard. You killed our junior sister Dao Huang, and you still dare to speak so arrogantly. Do you think that with the protection of the Huayro family, you can be lawless? You are a fox pretending to be a tiger. If you have the guts, fight me for 300 rounds. The people of the Quick Blade sect shouted angrily, and every face was filled with resentment. Dao Shi's face was as cold as ice, and his eyes were slightly red. He stared coldly at Su Yun and said, Su Yun, are you challenging the Quick Blade sect? No. Su Yun shook his head. Then take back your words. No. He still shook his head. You. Dao Shi was speechless. Soon, he pulled out the green blade from his waist and shouted coldly, then you have to be prepared to accept my anger. Su Yun, don't think that if you hide behind Miss Huayro, we can't do anything to you. At most, I will forcibly kill you today and then go to the Huayro family to ask for forgiveness. When Huayro Muyu heard this, her delicate little face was covered with frost. Dao Shi, how dare you? I, Dao Shi, will not rest in peace if I don't vent my anger today. Huayro Muyu's bright eyes narrowed. The guards beside her rushed up and lined up in front of her. Each of them took out their magic treasures and activated their profound chi, as if they were ready to fight. The Quickblade sect side did not show any weakness, and they all rushed over. The two sides confronted each other, and both sides were ready to fight. Wait a minute. At this moment, Su Yun spoke again. What else do you have to say? Daosher said coldly. However, Su Yun's expression did not change, and he said lightly, Quickblade sect master, didn't you just say that you want to settle this matter with a duel? You want to duel with me? Daosher asked. Of course, Su Yun said without hesitation. As soon as he said this, everyone was shocked. First grade Spirit Master against 6th grade Spirit Master? Crossing 5 grades? This was simply courting death. Even if the Huairou family used magic treasures to strengthen him, it was impossible to shrink the gap. Chapter 462. Su Yun, don't mess around. You can't fight him. Don't say any more. I'll take care of this. Hearing Su Yun's words, Huairou Muyu's voice was urgent and soft. However, Su Yun kept shaking his head. Although my cultivation is not good, I am a stubborn person. This matter was caused by Dao Huang, so I should bear the responsibility, not let Muyu pay for me. Su Yun didn't want to owe Huairou Muyu, and he didn't want to hide behind a woman. If he faced Daosher alone, he would have to shrink as much as he could. Dignity didn't matter, but now he wasn't alone. He didn't want Huairou Muyu to be taken advantage of by Daosher. Huairou Muyu was slightly stunned. She didn't understand Su Yun's mentality at all. When Daosher heard this, he snorted and laughed. Good, good, Su Yun, very good. Since you think so, then I won't say anything. Come, let's have a good fight. Let's write off all our grievances. After saying that, Daosher leaped and instantly landed in the middle of the two sides. The fierce and overbearing saber chi was like a burst of air, sweeping in all directions. In the end, he was the master of sect. Even the guards from the Huairou family felt nervous. They all stared at Daosher with a serious expression. Wait a minute. Su Yun spoke again in a timely manner. Daosher frowned, and his eyes shot out in uncontrollable anger. Are you done? If you are afraid, then admit your mistake and let Miss Huairou compensate you with 10 million cultivation coins. Then you can let it go. Cultivation coins? You think too much. Su Yun shook his head and said, Daosher, as a master of sect and a senior, don't you know how to be polite? I just participated in the new deer competition, and now I am exhausted. You want to duel with me at this time? If this gets out, aren't you afraid of being laughed at? How can your quick blade sect face others in the future? Then what do you want? There's no hurry to duel today. Let's set a time. Let me recover a little. When I'm ready, we'll fight with all our strength. How about it? Su Yun said. You're not afraid, are you? You want to stall for time? Afraid? How could this be? All right, since you can't wait to duel with me, then come. Oh, Muyu, I'm afraid that today's battle will shock the world. I'll have to trouble you to invite thousands of people to walk around the ultimate martial world and tell everyone how I, Su Yun, with my exhausted body and the power of the first stage of Spirit Master, fought against the sect leader of the Quick Blade sect, a 6th-stage Spirit Master cultivator. Su Yun said indifferently. Daosher was angry. He said angrily, well, in that case, in order not to affect the reputation of my Quick Blade sect, I will promise you, 10 days it is. After 10 days, let's fight on the Yuqing mountain below. What do you think? No problem. Life or death. Life or death. Good. Today, Miss Huairou is here. Let Miss Huairou be the witness. If at that time you come, what should we do? My Huairou family will give you an explanation. Without waiting for Su Yun to speak, Huairou Muyu spoke. Good. Daosher nodded and immediately waved his hand. Let's go. As his voice fell, the people of the Quick Blade sect flew away quickly. The people of the Quick Blade sect left, and Su Yun retracted his gaze. He took a deep breath and looked at Huairou Muyu. Just as he was about to say something, he saw Huairou Muyu return to the carriage alone, and then whispered, Let's go. Yes, Mississippi, Xiao-Yin replied, and then shouted, Let's go. The carriage moved forward. Could it be that this woman is angry because of my recklessness? Su Yun shook his head, took out his long sword, and sat on it, dozing off. He didn't regret this decision. Sometimes people have to be a bit more manly. How can they let a woman wipe their ass for them? Besides, this sh teapot was too unjust. Why did they have to lose money? The speed of the carriage was extremely fast, and in a little more than a day, the group arrived at Wuyi City. This city was located between New Deer City and Bayonne. On the way, they passed through more than 30 cities, mountains, rivers, and rivers. Wuyi City was far more prosperous than New Deer City and Sky Central City. The area of the entire city was probably larger than the combined size of the two cities. There were 3 rings of white light surrounding the city. It was said that these air shields could not only defend against external enemies, but also adjust the temperature, air, and increase the production of Xian Qi and spiritual Qi in the city. There were 8 gates in the city, and each gate was filled with people. As they approached Wuyi City, Huairou Muyu's carriage landed on the ground. The Pegasus pulled it with all their might, and when they approached the main gate, they neighed loudly. When the pedestrians in front of the gate heard this, they quickly scattered to the left and right, making way for the carriage. All of them focused their gazes on the carriage. It's Miss Huairou's carriage. Is Miss Huairou in the carriage? Why can't I see her? Sigh, what a pity. If I could see her face, I would have no regrets. How could a low-level, profound practitioner like you be able to see such a peerless, talented woman? A toad wants to eat swan meat. You speak as if you're not a toad. People whispered to each other, and the surroundings buzzed. Most of the topics revolved around Huairou Muyu. As the ruler of Wuyi City, Huairou Muyu was like a princess in the city. While she was respected, she was also admired by countless people. The carriage slowly moved forward, and more people crowded around it. Su Yun, who was following beside the carriage, also received a lot of attention. Seeing that Su Yun did not look like a guard, some people began to guess Su Yun's identity. Others were looking at him, and he was also looking at others. It had to be said that Wuyi City was a higher-level city, and the cultivators inside were all extremely powerful. The weakest one was around 2,500, and it was not uncommon to see 4,000 or 5,000 cultivators. There were even existences with 6,000 battle prowess. However, the real experts should be concentrated in the Huairou residence. Stepping on the green jade road, he quickly approached the Huairou residence. As he approached the residence, waves of lustrous light shot over. Su Yun looked over, and his heart suddenly beat wildly, his face revealing a look of surprise. The entire residence was shining brightly. The walls, doors, and other buildings of the residence seemed to be made of precious jade. They were moist and resplendent, very exquisite, and there were a large number of lifelike relief decorations in these precious jade. Many colorful gems were embellished, and runes could be seen everywhere. The entire periphery of the residence gave off an incomparably luxurious feeling. In the end, this was the house of the rich. If this was in the Sky Martial continent, wouldn't it be regarded as a temple? Su Yun sighed in his heart. The carriage stopped at the entrance of the residence. When the servants at the door saw this, they immediately knelt down on one knee and saluted the carriage. "Welcome back, miss." Xiao Yin pulled the curtain open and helped Huairou Muyu down. Kacha, at this moment, the door of the residence suddenly opened. A young master wearing a white jade embroidered robe walked out with 2 servants. When he saw Huairou Muyu getting off the carriage, the young master's eyes suddenly lit up. He immediately stepped forward and laughed. "My sister has returned safely. I am greatly relieved." "My sister, was the journey safe? I was extremely worried about you." His voice was extremely loud and somewhat artificial. Who was this person? Su Yun looked at the young master with a face of doubt. But that person seemed to only have Huairou Muyu in his eyes. He had already subconsciously ignored him. From the moment he came out, he did not even look at him. Su Yun laughed at himself and did not care. Huairou Muyu said indifferently, "So if it's Big Brother Yi, didn't you go out to train? Why did you suddenly return?" "I haven't returned to the residence to visit foster father and mother for a long time. I feel guilty. Recently, I heard that foster father's body is not well, so I rushed over to see foster father. I also offered the 10,000-year-old humanoid fruit that I obtained outside to help foster father recover quickly. The young master laughed. Hearing that, Huairou Muyu's expression did not change. She nodded lightly. Brother is considerate. I'll go see father. With that, she directly walked into the door. Sister Yu, I'll go with you. Young Master Yi quickly said. No need for now. Huairou Muyu said softly, then said to Xiaoyin, who had her head lowered, Xiaoyin, bring young Master Su to the hall first. After I see father, I'll come and entertain him. Yes, Mississippi. Xiaoyin nodded and bowed to Su Yun. Young Master Su, this way, please. Su Yun smiled and left with Xiaoyin. Young Master Yi glanced at Huairou Muyu, who was leaving. A trace of haze flashed across his originally warm face. He waved at the people beside him and said, Who is this guy surnamed Su? What is he doing in the Huairou residence? I don't know. Go check. Yes, young master. Su Yun was brought to the side hall to wait. Xiaoyin wanted to make tea. He was alone and bored, so he looked around the side hall. The decorations of the side hall were similar to those of the Sky Martial continent, but there were many details that could not be compared to the ordinary side hall of the Sky Martial continent. Under the tables and chairs, on the ceiling and at the lights, there were array seals attached to them, and what was shocking was that every array seal's chi was mysterious and profound and incomparably powerful. These array seals were at least cast by an existence of the 5th grade of Spirit Master. Inside the hall, there was a chair and a cup. They were all treasures. Su Yun just sat on the chair and felt his spirit essences being nourished by a mystical energy. His chi channels were perfectly recuperated and his entire body was recovering quickly. What he wanted to do the most right now was probably to sit on this chair and have a good sleep. I waited a long time. Su Yun. After an unknown period of time, Huairou Muyu walked in. Su Yun regained his senses from the comfort, stood up and smiled. How is your father? This illness is probably a curse cast by someone. It's not a big deal. The experts of our Huairou family have already prepared to remove the curse. Once the curse is completed, father will be able to recover. Don't worry. Huairou Muyu said softly. Follow me. I'll bring you to the training room now. You can absorb those cultivation coins earlier and increase your cultivation so that you can deal with the battle in 10 days. Oh, you already know that I've placed all my hopes on these 30 million cultivation coins? Su Yin said with a smile. Huairou Muyu shook her head lightly, but did not say anything. She turned and walked out of the hall with a trace of worry on her face, as though she had a lot on her mind. Su Yin did not think that she was worried about him because he did not see her like this when he returned to the Huairou family. Her worry seemed to have risen when she saw the young Master Yi. The young master's surname was Yi. He called Master Huairou his foster father and called Muyu my sister. Thinking about it, he could roughly guess his relationship with the Huairou family. Su Yin lowered his head and thought. He did not ask Huairou Muyu anything. Very quickly, Huairou Muyu led Su Yin to the front of a bright and sparkling pavilion. Chapter 463. Muyu, is this your embroidery pavilion? Su Yin was stunned, turned his head, and asked softly. Huairou Muyu looked at him quietly. How do you know? Look at the layout. Su Yin smiled. Although I haven't been in the ultimate martial world for a long time, I still have some understanding of the layout of the ultimate martial world's training grounds. Generally, the male cultivators' training grounds have a grand layout, and most of them focus on training. Yes, it is the kind of tireless training. Compared to female cultivators, male cultivators have a much stronger desire for strength, so their training grounds are filled with arrays that increase the speed of training. The arrays are arranged in a mess, and there are no unnecessary decorations. It is a true training ground, and female cultivators are much more comfortable and beautiful. Although there are many arrays, there are even more beauty arrays, especially the pill furnace, which is indispensable. Other than that, there are a lot of calming decorations. Female cultivators are more inclined to train their state of mind. I saw 2 phoenix carvings on the embroidery pavilion, so I guess that this is a training ground, and it is so beautiful and exquisite, it is most likely yours. I didn't expect you to know so much. Huairou Muyu nodded. Suyin laughed, then suddenly said softly, "But come to think of it, Muyu, you brought a man like me into your training grounds without permission. If word gets out, wouldn't it be bad for your reputation?" Reputation? Huayro Muyu shook her head. "You worry too much. You can't control the mouth of idle people. Why do you care? Why would people who are not idle care about you? Even less care. So open-minded, I admire you." Su Yun praised. "All right, don't waste time. Come in with me." Huayro Muyu walked towards the embroidery pavilion. The door opened by itself, and an intoxicating fragrance came out, and a faint halo floated. Su Yin looked up and saw that the first floor of the embroidery pavilion was very spacious. A large array with a diameter of about 7 meters fell in the center, and on both sides of the large array, there were 2 large cauldrons, one green and one red. At this moment, the large cauldrons were already activated, and green smoke rose up, passing through the ceiling and flying to an unknown direction. The walls on the left and right sides of the hall were covered with reliefs. There were birds and fish, all of them vivid and lifelike, and right in front of them hung a huge painting. In the painting was a blooming red lotus. It was exceptionally beautiful. Su Yin looked around the hall, while Huayro Muyu led the way. In front of the hall, there was a door on the right, and on the left was a wooden staircase that seemed to lead to the second floor. But Huayro Muyu did not bring Su Yin to the second floor, but directly walked towards the door. The door was pushed open. It wasn't big inside, and it was made of stone bricks. It was about 90 square meters, and there was nothing inside. There was only a black cushion in the center, and on the surrounding walls, there were a large number of black dots, densely packed like stars. "Just sit on that cushion and absorb cultivation coins." Huayro Muyu pointed to the black cushion in the center. "Is this a place for you to cultivate?" Su Yin asked. "Not bad." Huayro Muyu nodded. "I have 800,000 cultivation coins to cultivate every day, but because I am busy, I don't have much time to cultivate, so my cultivation is not good." 800,000? Wouldn't that be nearly 24 million cultivation coins a month? Su Yin was really shocked. Could the monthly income of the Huayro Chamber of Commerce be that much? All of a sudden, Su Yun realized that the cultivation coins in his hands were nothing compared to the rich people. "I will send someone to give you some things that you can use to absorb cultivation coins. There are still 10 days of time, so you should train well here. On the day of the decisive battle, I will accompany you to the Jade Green Mountain." Huayro Muyu said, "There's no need for that. This is my own business. I don't need to trouble you, Muyu." Su Yin said. Huayro Muyu had helped him enough. If she troubled him again, he would be embarrassed. "If I go, at least Dao Shi will be afraid of the Huayro family and won't kill you. Once you go alone, he won't have any scruples. It's very likely that he will break your body and even imprison your soul." Huayro Muyu said as she walked outside. "Okay, I won't disturb you anymore. Hurry up and absorb it. 10 days is not a lot." When Su Yin heard this, he revealed a complicated smile. "I know. Thank you, Muyu. No need. You saved me after all." In a dark prison cell, a woman dressed in pure white sat quietly in the middle of the room. Her eyes were closed as she meditated. Even though there were 2 formations around her that suppressed her cultivation, she did not care at all. "Senior sister. Senior sister." At this time, a respectful voice came from the corridor, and then a light footstep came over. Long Xinli slowly opened her eyes and looked outside. She saw a girl wearing a black Blade Master uniform, holding a long sword, walking over expressionlessly. "Yinshan." Long Xinli's pupils slightly enlarged, and she called out softly. "Elder Long." Bai Yinshan looked at her quietly. The current Bai Yinshan was completely different from before. Her entire body was filled with a dense cold air, as if she had just walked out of an ice cellar. Her skin was white, but it was not natural white, but a bloodless white. Her eyes were deep like 2 deep wells, and her long black hair was frighteningly black, darker than ink, darker than the night. At this moment, her body was surrounded by an indescribable evil charm. Long Xinli's eyes were filled with unconcealable shock, and she said, "Yinshan, what's wrong? What's wrong?" Bai Yinshan asked, puzzled. "You. Why do I feel like you're so strange? You're not like the you from before." "Oh, Is that so? It's probably because I cultivated the dark goddess tactic that the old witch taught me. It's not a big deal. Bai Yin Shan didn't mind and said indifferently, "But you, Elder Long, when did you come to Suicide Valley? Why would you be locked up in this place? If I hadn't accidentally heard a disciple in the valley accidentally spill the beans, I wouldn't have known that you were here. You don't even know about me?" Long Xianli was stunned. "Then how did you get in?" "The two people at the door were led into the Suicide Valley by me. They could be considered my trusted aides, so it's not difficult to enter this place. So that's how it is." Long Xianli looked at Bai Yin Shan with a complicated expression, sighed slightly, and told her the whole story. When Bai Yin Shan heard this, she nodded repeatedly and said, "I understand. So the old witch has also taken a fancy to Elder Long's talent. The old witch is so thirsty for geniuses. It seems like she wants to nurture a large number of talents to realize her revenge plan. In the end, we're just chess pieces in her eyes." "That's right. Such a person will only treat those who are useful as chess pieces. But chess pieces have the benefits of chess pieces. Elder, since you're trapped here, why don't you compromise for the time being and agree to the old witch? She treats people well and will definitely teach you everything she knows. We just came from the Sky Martial continent. Our cultivation is low, and we're looked down upon by others. If we can quickly increase our cultivation, it will be of great help to us in the ultimate martial world in the future. Isn't that right?" "No." Just as Bai Yin Shan finished speaking, Long Xianli immediately scolded. "Yin Shan, first, you and I are from the Immortal Sword sect, not from the Suicide Valley. Secondly, the Suicide Valley is an evil sect. Although you and I came from the Sky Martial continent, we are still righteous people. How can a righteous person take an evil sect as a master? Isn't this falling into the evil path? I will never agree. You're just uncivilized." Bai Yin Shan shook her head. "I, Long Xianli, also hope to have a strong cultivation, but I would rather train myself than take this kind of shortcut. Yin Shan, if you say that again, then please leave." Long Xianli's voice became cold. Bai Yin Shan's words were like an awl that pierced into her heart, violating her bottom line. A hint of sadness flashed past Long Xianli's eyes. She turned her head, try her best not to let Bai Yin Shan see that. Bai Yin Shan quietly stood in front of the prison cell. She looked at Long Xianli attentively, and after a long time she sighed, "Elder Long, I am sorry. I should not have said those words to you. Everyone's way of thinking is different. Your way of thinking is too different from mine." Long Xianli looked at her. "Elder Long, I believe you know that I, Bai Yin Shan, have always been in a state of hunger and thirst for power. No one is more thirsty for cultivation than me, more thirsty for power. As long as I can obtain power, I do not care if this power is good or evil. So you don't plan to leave the Suicide Valley?" Long Xianli interrupted her and questioned her. Bai Yin Shan hesitated for a moment, nodded, and then shook her head. "I will leave, but not now. When a suicide which has nothing else to teach me, I will leave." Hearing that, Long Xianli laughed bitterly. "Looks like it was a mistake for me to come here." Bai Yin Shan had indeed changed. The current her was even crazier in her pursuit of power, and even more terrifying. Her thoughts were almost all based on obtaining power. "I will arrange for someone to help you escape from the Suicide Valley. Elder, don't worry." After Bai Yin Shan finished speaking, she turned around and left. Long Xianli's face was pale, and she did not make a sound. Soon, the sound of footsteps in the corridor disappeared. Bada. A cultivation coin that had been sucked into a rock was thrown on the ground. Su Yun grabbed a handful of cultivation coins that were piled up like a mountain and absorbed it again. In less than a second, the cultivation coin in his hand turned into a rock again, and the profound energy inside was completely gone. It had to be said that the Huairou family really had a lot of treasures. Not to mention the strange cushion beneath him. Just the series of magic treasures that Huairou Muyu had sent to assist in absorbing cultivation coins was enough to make people sigh in admiration. The star-absorbing gloves that could allow people to absorb 20 cultivation coins at the same time, the 10,000 dust headscarf that could increase the absorption speed, and so on. If an ordinary person were to absorb nearly 30 million cultivation coins, it would be impossible to complete it without a month's time. However, with these treasures, not only could the absorption efficiency reach perfection, the speed would also be halved. Just as Su Yun was happily absorbing the cultivation coins and obtaining his cultivation, a voice suddenly sounded from outside the room. "Sister Yu, are you inside?" Chapter 464. This voice. It seems to be that young Master Yi. Su Yun was startled. Why is this guy here? Is he here to look for Huairou Muyu? Forget it. Ignore him. At this time, Muyu seemed to have gone to the Chamber of Commerce in the city to inspect. She was not in the embroidery pavilion, so let him call. Su Yun thought and continued to absorb the cultivation coins. Sister Yu, are you there, Sister Yu? At this time, young Master Yi called out a few more times, but still did not get a response. Finally, he stopped, and after a while, he no longer heard any sound. Su Yun breathed a sigh of relief. It was finally quiet. However, just when he thought that young Master Yi had left, a green ripple suddenly penetrated from the wall and swept directly towards him. It penetrated his body and directly hit the wall behind him, disappearing. Su Yun was stunned. What is this? However, just as he was puzzled, there was another loud shout from outside. Who is it? Actually in my sister Yu's embroidery pavilion? How dare you, are you a thief? As the voice fell, the door of the embroidery pavilion was forcibly opened with a bang. Then, the stone door was also pushed open. Young Master Yi stood in front of the stone door with a face full of anger, glaring inside. Su Yun's face was full of surprise when he saw Su Yun and the huge amount of cultivation coins beside him. Young Master Yi was stunned for a moment. Then he flew into a rage. You thief! You actually stole my Huairou family's property and secretly cultivated here. How audacious of you! You can forget about leaving today. I'll take your soul and seal it into my silver belt to torture you. After saying that, young Master Yi directly attacked Su Yun with 2 strong gusts of wind. The strong wind contained profound energy, but did not belong to the 5 main attributes of profound energy. It seemed to be a unique kind of profound energy. Although Su Yun could not see through this person's cultivation, judging from the horror of this profound energy, the opponent's strength was at least 4 to 5 grades higher than his own. He was afraid that he was not inferior to Dao Shi, so he could not take it head-on. He hurriedly dodged to the right. Unfortunately, the stone room was too small. He barely dodged the 2 Xian winds, but it was difficult for him to reach a safe zone. Young Master Yi was also a ruthless person. Seeing that Su Yun had dodged, he immediately raised his leg and fiercely kicked towards Su Yun's head. The tip of his foot was also emitting waves of mystical wind. Its destructive power was astonishing. If this kick landed, Su Yun's head would definitely explode like a watermelon, splitting into pieces. How vicious! Su Yun clenched his teeth. At the critical moment, he did not hold back and immediately activated one of the 72 consummate techniques from the sprite's shadow ring. Reverse yin-yang dragon art. Crash! A circle of black and white light enveloped his body. Mr. Ye's big foot landed on his forehead, but in an instant bang, Mr. Yi suddenly fell to the ground. His forehead was split open and fresh blood flowed out. He was in a sorry state. On the other hand, Su Yun was completely fine and immediately stood up. He glanced at young Master Yi and did not show any mercy. He directly pulled out the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword and walked towards young Master Yi with killing intent. With his attitude, he was afraid that he would not listen to his explanation. With his methods, he would definitely not be able to escape from the Huairou manor. Now, only by crippling this young master's legs would he have a chance to live. Don't blame me, Su Yun said coldly, his face extremely sinister. Damn you! How dare you plot against me? Do you know where this is? I will definitely let you die without a burial place. An angry roar burst out. Young Master Yi suddenly stood up and waved his hands. He was about to make a move. His face was covered in blood, and he looked very cautious. As his hands danced, a large amount of profound energy began to coil around him. There was an indescribable concept to it. When Su Yun rushed over, his speed was actually slowed down by 1/3 by this concept. How amazing! His heart tightened, and he immediately pinched his fingers, intending to take out the subordinate sword to attack. However, just as the two of them were about to fight, a cold shout rang out, "Stop!" The two of them were shocked at the same time and looked towards the source of the voice. They saw that Huayro Muyu and the maid Xiao Yin had appeared in front of the embroidery pavilion. "Sister Yu?" Young Master Yi was stunned for a moment. Then he hurriedly shouted, "My sister, there's a thief in your embroidery pavilion, but don't worry, I will help you take him down." As young Master Yi spoke, the wound on his forehead was still faintly painful. He knew his own attack in his heart, but being countered by this strange, profound skill had really caused him to suffer a heavy injury. "Thief? What thief? This person is my best friend." "Big brother, you misunderstood," Huayro Muyu said. "Best friend?" Young Master Yi was stunned. Then he hurriedly said, "Since he's your best friend, why would he be in your embroidery pavilion? And he's actually cultivating here? This is impossible. Could it be that you guys—" Huayro Muyu frowned slightly, and a faint blush appeared on her fair and delicate face. She shook her head lightly and said, "Big brother, please don't misunderstand. Su Yun and I are innocent. It's not what you think. There's a reason why Su Yun is cultivating in my embroidery pavilion." "Reason? What reason?" Young Master Yi hurriedly asked. A trace of annoyance flashed past Huayro Muyu's eyes, but unfortunately, the other party did not see it. She shook her head again and said, "The reason is too complicated. It's hard to explain in a short time. But big brother, why are you here? No one is allowed to enter my embroidery pavilion without my permission. Big brother, you should know this rule." This, young Master Yi was somewhat speechless. "Big brother, I just came back from the trading company and am already very tired. Please go back for the time being and let the spirit doctor take care of the injury on your forehead. You don't have to worry about Su Yun. Xiaoyin, send young Master Yi back." "Yes, Mississippi," the maid Xiaoyin said. Then she bowed to young Master Yi and said respectfully, "Young Master, please let me help you to the spirit doctor to take care of your wound." Young Master Yi's face alternated between red and white. It was a little ugly. After a moment, he forced a smile and nodded. "If that's the case, then I'll take my leave first." As his voice fell, he turned around and walked out of the door without looking back. Huayro Muyu quietly watched young Master Yi leave. When his figure disappeared in front of the embroidery pavilion, she turned her head and looked at Su Yun. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Although your brother is very strong, he can't hurt me." Su Yun laughed. However, Huayro Muyu shook her head gently. "He's not my brother. Is a sworn brother not a brother? If he really sees me as a sister, then what's the difference between sworn brother and blood brother? However, he only calls me sister, but he has other plans in his heart. How can such a person be my brother?" Huayro Muyu said. "Plans? What's going on?" Su Yun asked. Huayro Muyu bit her lower lip and then shook her head. "This matter has little to do with you. It's related to the internal affairs of my Huayro family. It might be a good thing for you not to know. Why don't you tell me? Maybe I can help you in some way. Aren't you afraid of getting involved in my Huayro family affairs? As long as you think it's okay. After all, we're friends." Su Yun smiled. After going through so much with Huayro Muyu, Su Yun realized that this girl who looked very complicated was actually very reliable. "Friend?" Huayro Muyu was slightly startled. She probably felt that this word was very new. She was silent for a moment, but then she still spoke. "His name is Yi Mo Xian, the son of the Yi family. There are many big families with the surname Yi Injushin, and Yi Mo Xian's family is also one of them. Their reputation is not big, and they are in the business of selling magic treasures. After hundreds of years, they have some scale. The Yi family's patriarch has a very good relationship with my father, Huayro Gong. It is said that the two of them have known each other before and are brothers who have gone through life and death together. However, 300 years ago, the Yi family suffered a great calamity and was destroyed. It is said that the Yi family bought an incredible magic treasure and was targeted by a powerful being. In one night, the powerful being turned over his hand and took the treasure away. That day, Yi Mo Xian had just returned from his training and escaped the calamity. No one dared to investigate who this almighty being was. When my father found out about this, he immediately went to the Yi family to deal with the aftermath. Seeing that Yi Mo Xian was alone in this predicament, my father's heart softened, and he took him in as his adopted son. He brought him back to the Huairou family and set up a cultivation place for him, giving him magic treasures and materials. Yi Mo Xian didn't refuse and accepted it all. Naturally, he became my adopted brother. Actually, from the beginning, I didn't have any feelings for Yi Mo Xian, but gradually, his actions made me feel disgusted. Su Yin, have you heard of the Sacred Heart? Sacred Heart? What is that? A magic treasure with boundless power. It is also my protective magic treasure. With this, even if it is the Spirit Emperor, I can still kill it. Spirit Emperor. When Su Yun heard this, he was completely shocked. In his eyes, even the Sky Spirit Master was in existence at the peak of the heavens, let alone the Spirit Emperor. What kind of illusory existence was this? Does that so-called Sacred Heart really have such power? Su Yun took a deep breath and asked with incomparable shock. To be honest, I don't know if it's true or not. I haven't used it before because the Sacred Heart can only be used once. It's a treasure passed down by my ancestor. Huairou Miyu said softly. Yi Mo Xian returned to the Huairou family. I'm afraid his goal is the Sacred Heart on me. If I'm not wrong, he came to the embroidery pavilion for this. Hearing this, Su Yun nodded. No wonder when I was cultivating inside, there was a burst of green light, and then Yi Mo Xian sensed its existence. I'm afraid that's the spell he used to search for me, right? That's right. If he sensed that I wasn't in the embroidered pavilion, he would have immediately entered to search for the Sacred Heart. However, he found you and thought that you were also here for the Sacred Heart, so he rushed in recklessly, intending to capture you. Why does he want the Sacred Heart? Is it to avenge the Yi family? Su Yin asked. This possibility was not small. After all, to be able to destroy the Yi family in one night, one's strength had at least reached the Sky Spirit Master. Huairou Miyu sighed faintly. If Yi Mo Xian is really like this, then there's no harm in giving him the Sacred Heart. However, his thoughts are far from that simple. Chapter 465. Hearing Huairou Miyu's words, Su Yun was confused. What? Don't tell me he didn't use such a powerful and destructive magic weapon for revenge? Maybe not. Huairou Miyu said softly. According to my secret investigation, Yi Mo Xian has not asked anyone to investigate the Almighty who killed his family in recent years. Instead, he began to collect information about our Huairou Chamber of Commerce and secretly visited many other chambers of commerce. Su Yin, if you want to use this magic weapon for revenge, what would you choose to do? Maybe I will try to communicate with you first. After all, this magic weapon is yours. If you're willing to lend it, then everything will be fine. That's right. Huairou Miyu nodded. Although I am a merchant, I will not fuss over every ounce of my own people. If he is really here for revenge, what harm is there in giving him this magic weapon? But he never discussed it with me. Instead, he secretly wanted to take it, so I guess he must have other ulterior motives. Then what are you going to do? 10 days later, after your battle with Dao Shi is over, you can think of a way to test Yi Mo Xian. Huairou Miyu sighed softly, a trace of unfathomable sadness on her face. Let nature take its course. Don't think too much. Maybe Yi Mo Xian isn't bad. Su Yin laughed. He could see that Huairou Miyu didn't want Yi Mo Xian to be disloyal. Although she didn't like this person, in the end, he was still her father's adopted son, the son of her father's brother. Let's not talk about him. Huairou Miyu looked at Su Yun and asked, how are you absorbing the cultivation coins? Very good. Su Yun couldn't help but laugh. In just one day, I actually absorbed nearly 5 million cultivation coins. The efficiency of your magic treasures is too amazing. If it was in the past, it would take at least 7 or 8 days to finish. When Huairou Miyu heard this, she lowered her head and thought for a while. She murmured, 5 million cultivation coins a day. This speed is still too slow. Still slow? I only need 6 days to absorb all those cultivation coins, and there are still 4 days for me to consolidate. How can this be slow? Su Yin was puzzled. But just then, Huairou Miyu suddenly took out a cultivation coin card and handed it over to Su Yin. If it's just absorbing 30 million cultivation coins, it's indeed enough, but there's still 20 million here. If we continue at this speed, then we won't have time to consolidate the cultivation you've absorbed, so we have to speed up. Hearing that, Su Yun was immediately shocked. There's still 20 million? Mu Yu. This is just a small token of my appreciation. Huai Mu Yu gently turned her head, and her expression did not change. Her white and delicate cheeks reflected a little glow. Dao Shi's cultivation is strong. He has the power of the peak of the 6th grade of Spirit Master. And as the leader of a sect, I don't know how many trump cards he has. Although you have 30 million cultivation coins to absorb, it can still be difficult for you to be Dao Shi's opponent. I used to be very busy dealing with the business of the Chamber of Commerce, and the cultivation coins allocated by the family can't be absorbed at all, so I stored them. I don't need these 20 million cultivation coins. You can take them and absorb them together, so you have more chances of winning against Dao Shi. Don't refuse. If you feel guilty, you can return it to me in the future. When Su Yin heard this, he also felt that it was reasonable. The beauty was so kind. If he refused again, it would be a bit pretentious, not to mention that he really needed these things now. Since that's the case, Mu Yu, thank you. It's just that I have a total of 45 million cultivation coins, and there are only 9 days left. Even with the help of your treasures, I can't possibly absorb them all. Su Yin smiled bitterly. Don't worry, I have a way. Huai Mu Yu said as she walked towards the stone room. Su Yin was puzzled, but then he saw Huai Mu Yu entering the stone room and taking out a yellow scroll. Opening it, she picked up the black cushion and placed the scroll on the ground. Then, she placed the cushion down and placed her delicate hands on the center of the cushion. She closed her eyes and started chanting, urging her profound spirit qi. Traces of mystical, profound spirit qi flowed out, passing through the cushion and into the yellow scroll. On the scroll, there were many tadpole-like characters. When the profound spirit qi entered, the characters immediately released a radiance. It was a beautiful sight, and an indescribable, profound intent leaked out from it. In the morning, I went to the trading organization and thought of this scroll. It was given to me by a friend of my father many years ago and was placed in the trading organization's treasury. I brought it here, and it can be put to good use. It can temporarily expand a person's spirit essences and chi meridians, allowing them to absorb even more cultivation coins. This scroll is extremely rare, and only the private scrolls of powerful people and large financial groups would be able to create it. Huai Mu Yu activated the scroll and said, No wonder Mu Yu prepared another 20 million cultivation coins. She has already made preparations. But just at that moment, suddenly a light click sound came out from the scroll. Following that, the tadpole characters on the scroll all dimmed down like a machine that had stopped moving. It slowly calmed down. Huai Mu Yu frowned as she looked at the scroll. Her expression became serious. She tried to activate the scroll again. The profound spirit qi flowed out, and the scroll quickly lit up again. But not long after, the light dimmed down again. She took the cushion away and inspected it carefully. After a moment, the seriousness on Huai Mu Yu's face was replaced by worry. What's wrong? Su Yin asked. It's broken. Huai Mu Yu sighed. This scroll. Yes. This scroll's craftsmanship is extremely exquisite. It cannot be stored for too long. The few extremely important characters have already vaporized. Since it's like that, then forget it. It's fine if I don't absorb the 20 million cultivation coins. In the remaining time, I will absorb as many cultivation coins as I can. You don't have to worry too much. Su Yin laughed. He had always been very open-minded about this kind of thing. However, Huai Mu Yu's stubbornness exceeded his imagination. In this way, you have no chance of winning against Dao Shi. No matter what, you have to absorb these cultivation coins. Huai Mu Yu thought for a moment, then picked up the scroll and looked at it carefully. After about the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, she whispered softly, Those characters seem to be moved by profound spirit qi. From the traces left on it, it should be the illusory word. I have some understanding of this, and I should be able to use profound spirit qi to condense these words. After saying that, Huai accumulated profound spirit chi and followed the traces on it to redraw the characters inside. In an instant, the scroll was activated. When Huai saw this, a hint of hidden joy flashed in her eyes, and she quickly put the cushion on it. But just as the cushion was placed on the scroll dimmed again. Huai was stunned and quickly checked the scroll, only to find that the words on the scroll had just been condensed with profound spirit chi had disappeared again. She looked at it for a while with a calm and delicate face. After a long time, she said, "The person who made this scroll is really extraordinary. These words condensed with profound spirit chi are all condensed with special magic power, so that it does not spread. If I don't have his special magic power to condense profound spirit chi, even if I follow the trajectory of the characters on it, it will dissipate after a few seconds. If you want this scroll to continue to work, you must continue to urge chi." At this point, Huai cheeks suddenly turned red, but her expression remained calm. "It seems that I can only use this stupid method. Suyun, I will help you urge chi. Continue to support this scroll. Continue to inject so that the words do not disappear. You can start cultivating." "What?" When Suyun heard this, he shook his head. "In this way, how can you bear it? Let someone else do it. This kind of thing should be done by many people, right?" "Who said that? This can't be done by a scroll master. The reason why I can do it is because I have some understanding of scrolls. Scroll masters are very rare existences, and it is already very powerful for a Chamber of Commerce to have 1 or 2 scroll masters. Our Huai family only has 3 of them. Let them help you urge chi. Not to mention that it is a waste of talent. They don't have the time to deal with the matters here. After all, the missions in the Chamber of Commerce are enough to make them anxious. Suyun, don't waste time. Sit down, let's start." Huai said. When Suyun heard this, he saw the determination in her eyes. He sighed and no longer persisted. He nodded, covered the black cushion, and sat cross-legged on it. But just as he was about to absorb the cultivation coins, Huai suddenly said something. "Take off your clothes." "What?" Suyun was dumbfounded and turned to look at her. "Don't think too much." Huai expression was calm as she said, "Removing your clothes is to let the effect of the scroll work on your body. If there are clothes to isolate it, the effect of the scroll will be greatly reduced, and it will be a waste of this treasure." "Is it like that?" Suyun recovered. He did not feel embarrassed. He was originally thick-skinned. Furthermore, Huai was not embarrassed. So what was he worried about? He immediately took off the cloak on his body and threw it into the storage ring. Then, he removed the protective armor inside. His wheat-colored skin was revealed, and his bulging muscles were exposed. His strong muscles and firm body were very attractive. Huai secretly looked at him, then quickly focused her gaze on the scroll. "Do I need to take off my pants?" Just then, Suyun asked. "No need." Her voice was startled. "Oh." Suyun chuckled. He did not waste any more time. He took out the cultivation coins and started to absorb them. The scroll released a light, and a mystical power drilled into his body, causing the chi channels in his body to immediately increase in strength. The power of the cultivation coins seemed to have drilled into his body in an instant. Following the chi channels into his spirit essences, it started to amplify his spirit essences bit by bit, expanding his own strength. Slowly, the cultivation coins were consumed bit by bit, and Suyun's strength also started to increase bit by bit. In this world, the rich were the masters. How many cultivation coins did the people in charge of the financial groups in commerce have? How terrifying was their strength? Chapter 466. On a rugged mountain road leading to the Nine-Head City, a girl in red was carefully moving forward. Every few steps she took, she would stop and look around, carefully investigating and truly advancing step by step. Although the speed of training in the ultimate martial world is extremely fast, there are too many strong martial artists. People like me who entered the ultimate martial world through trickery are too weak. If I were to be targeted by a strong martial artist, I am afraid that my soul would be used to refine treasures. Hu Qianmei thought, and carefully moved forward. She did not dare to enter the city, and only walked in the wilderness. Ever since she parted with Long Xianli, She began to look for a way to save Long Xianli. Although she had no clue, she did not give up. After being saved by her master and returned to the immortal sword sect, Hu Qianmei only had two relatives in this life, her master and Long Xianli. Although Long Xianli was dead set on the immortal sword sect and did not even believe that the immortal sword sect was the one who killed their master, Hu Qianmei no longer blamed Long Xianli. She slowly understood her junior sister's personality. Without absolute evidence, she would not believe in any conjecture. It was not considered straightforward, but it was a very unique personality. But at this moment, Hu Qianmei had no direction at all, and her heart was beginning to feel lost. Perhaps saving Long Xianli was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. She found a large rock, sat down cross-legged, and began to meditate. The ultimate martial world's profound qi surprised her, and adding on the fact that she was sharing her talent with Su Yun, she felt that her cultivation speed was like a rocket, advancing 1,000 miles a day. But this was not enough. In this world, even spirit master cultivators were very ordinary existences. So just then, a few figures suddenly flew across the sky. Hu Qianmei was shocked and immediately jumped down from the big rock, anxiously concealing her own qi, hiding her body inside a big rock. Her huge foxtail wrapped around her delicate body, trembling. In the sky martial continent, she was also considered a strong warrior and naturally understood that in the eyes of the strong, the life of the weak was not worth mentioning. They could take it if they wanted to. She had been in the ultimate martial world for a period of time, and she had seen how some of the weak were easily taken away by the strong. If not for her always being cautious, she would have died long ago. Hu Qianmei quietly sized up the people in the sky, only to see that they were stepping on their own artifacts and sprinting. The two of them were in a sorry state. Their bodies were covered with wounds, and their clothes were dyed red with blood. They looked extremely miserable, and looking at their pale faces, they seemed to be running for their lives. Seeing that, Hu Qianmei was slightly startled. She did not dare to come out, and continued to hide behind the rock. She quietly dispersed all the profound qi in her body. The profound qi in her body was used up. She did not have much strength. Her current strength was probably only at the spirit soul realm. Even so, it was enough. The lower the cultivation, the harder it was to be detected by the strong. Because in the ultimate martial world, where spirit qi was rampant, even a reptile's accumulated profound qi was probably higher than the spirit soul realm. After about 30 breaths of time, another figure appeared. He sped past, straight to the place where the two people escaped, and as he flew, he could still hear waves of roars. "Don't go!" It seemed that they were being chased by the enemy again. Hu Qianmei secretly thought in her heart. After hiding behind the rock for another incense stick of time, seeing that it was safe, she came out. Secretly relieved, Hu Qianmei planned to leave this place. Where there were people, there would always be trouble. If she was involved, she would not be able to protect her life. Thinking of this, Hu Qianmei was about to leave. But after taking a few steps, she suddenly stopped. The black fox's eyes rolled around. Then she hurriedly turned around and walked in the direction of the three people. She still did not dare to walk too fast, and still looked around 3 steps at a time. However, after walking for half a day, the air was filled with a strong smell of blood and a large amount of messy, profound qi. This was the wilderness. There were few people, and there were not even any fierce beasts around. Hu Qianmei's cute brows slightly tightened and carefully followed the smell of blood. Finally, at the foot of a barren mountain, a large number of uneven pits appeared in her eyes. There were traces of explosions everywhere. It was the scene of a battle, and on this battlefield, there were dozens of spirit cultivator corpses scattered all over the place. There were indeed benefits. Hu Qianmei was overjoyed. The reason why he walked this way was to try his luck, to see if there were any benefits to pick up. She lay behind a rock, her furry ears pricked up, and a pair of black eyes carefully sized up the battlefield. This seems to be someone from the same sect. Hu Qianmei glanced at the clothes of these spirit cultivators and found that most of them were wearing the same clothes. On the right side of the battlefield, a broken magic tool carriage fell there, and the 10 white horses that pulled the carriage all died. Their corpses were blown up, and their flesh and blood were badly mutilated. It was very miserable. Huchieme did not dare to go up directly, but patrolled around, and after finding that there was no one, she carefully went up to the battlefield. They should all be existences above Spirit Master. They must have a lot of treasures on them. If I take their treasures and exchange them for cultivation coins, it can help me quickly enter the Spirit Master. Huchieme thought, and began to quickly clean up the corpses. This place was remote, and no one knew about the battle that had happened. If someone knew, then Huchieme would not be able to do anything. Not long later, Huchieme took out a basin full of bowls and a few space baguettes. Great, great. With these treasures, it will be much easier to walk in the ultimate martial world in the future. Huchieme beamed with joy. After organizing everything, he took out some useful things and continued to plunder. No one would come here for a while, so she did not have to worry about anything. Girl, just at this moment, a low voice suddenly rang out. Huchieme's heart suddenly jumped, and she was so scared that her fox tail stood up straight. She hurriedly looked in the direction of the voice, only to find that the source of the voice actually came from the broken carriage. Girl, come here quickly. The voice was a little weak, but it was also a little impatient and overbearing. Huchieme frowned. She was a little nervous, but she did not immediately escape. Instead, she carefully approached the carriage and lifted the curtain. He saw an old man covered in blood sitting inside the room. The old man's chest was pierced, and his heart was missing. Blood kept flowing, and both of his legs were broken. The bones in his hands were broken, and they were limp. It was very miserable. Huchieme could not sense the old man's cultivation, but at this moment, she did not have much profound chi left in her body, but she did not die from this kind of injury. Her cultivation was probably not simple. Huchieme greets Senior. Huchieme heaved a sigh of relief and immediately bowed. Only a 10th stage Spirit Star Realm cultivation. Truly a useless person. But forget it, forget it. If you can help me, maybe I can give you some benefits and let your cultivation advance by leaps and bounds. How about it? Girl, are you willing? The old man said in an incomparably weak voice. Senior, what instructions do you have? Huchieme asked carefully. However, the old man was not in a hurry to speak. Instead, he opened his eyes that were almost overflowing with blood and asked weakly, Girl, where are you from? Me? Huchieme was startled for a moment. His eyes secretly rolled and said, I am from the Emperor Palace. Emperor Palace? Umph. An ant like you dares to deceive this old man? Do you believe that this old man will beat you until your divine soul is gone? The old man was furious, but halfway through his words, he started to cough violently. Senior, don't be angry. This junior is just about to join the Emperor Palace. Umph. The old man looked at Huchieme coldly and said, Looking at your appearance, I am afraid that you are also a lowly half-human, half-demon. Join the Emperor Palace? I think you're most likely a lunatic talking nonsense. With that said, a trace of killing intent flashed past Huchieme's eyes, but she did not say anything and only squeezed out a cute smile in response. Girl, do you know who this old man is? Senior, who are you? This old man is the famous 7th Elder of the Dragon City, Elder Lu. So you are the 7th Elder of the Dragon City, Elder Lu? For this junior to be able to see Senior's face today, it is truly a blessing of 3 lifetimes. I greet Elder Lu. Huchieme immediately bowed again. Her cute little face was filled with excitement, like a fan seeing her idol. Actually, in her heart, it was not like that at all. She had never heard of the Dragon City, let alone this Elder Lu. When the other party saw her performance, he was very happy. He did not expect that even a nobody in the Dragon City would be so famous. Elder Lu was very satisfied and asked again, Since you know Dragon City, then you must know the power of Dragon City? Of course I know. Although the Emperor Palace is strong, compared with Dragon City, it is really not a little bit worse. It is just that this junior is a half-human, half-demon, with a lowly status. I dare not expect Dragon City. When Elder Lu heard this, he laughed and said, Ha ha, girl, you have a little self-awareness, but it is not difficult to enter Dragon City. As long as you do this for me, I will definitely let you enter Dragon City. Please instruct me, Senior, Hu Qianmei said. However, Elder Lu suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a blood-red bead. The bead fell to the ground, and with a bada sound, it exploded. A breath of space swayed, and then a delicate brocade box appeared in the place where the blood-red bead exploded. You take this thing, hurry back to Dragon City. Then give it to our Dragon City Lord. Do you understand? Elder Lu's breathing began to quicken. It seemed that he could not hold on for long. What is this? Hu Qianmei picked up the brocade box and asked. However, Elder Lu took a breath and shouted angrily. What this is has nothing to do with you. Girl, you must remember, you are not allowed to open this thing. Otherwise, I will kill you, and the people of Dragon City will never let you go. Do you understand? Can you kill me? Old guy. Hu Qianmei snorted in her heart, but her face was full of innocence. She nodded quickly. Understood, Senior. Okay, go ahead. Kingdom Elder Lu glanced at the sky and whispered. However, Hu Qianmei was not in a hurry to leave. She looked at Elder Lu, whose breath was gradually weakening, and said, Senior, your current situation is not optimistic. If you continue, you will only die, and your soul will be scattered and devoured by the surrounding vicious beasts. Since this junior is going to Dragon City, then I will be a good person to the end and help the senior. Oh, what do you want? Elder Lu asked. This junior will collect the senior's soul, bring it back to Dragon City, and ask the experts of Dragon City to resurrect it. Hu Qianmei said with a smile, and her narrow eyes flashed a trace of inexplicable meaning. Chapter 467. I don't need you to worry about me. What you have to do now is to bring this thing back to Dragon City and give it to the City Lord. The enemy of Dragon City is likely to return here. You should leave quickly. If that person takes this thing away, the consequences will be unimaginable. Go quickly. The old man roared anxiously. However, Hu Qianmei didn't have the slightest intention of leaving. She showed a lovely smile, slightly curved her eyes, and said, Senior, how can this be? You're a person I respect very much. How can I watch you die like this? Let me take your soul and then send it to Dragon City. Let the Lord there resurrect you. Although your cultivation will be reduced, at least you can save your life, right? After that, Elder Lu heard a clang sound. Hu Qianmei had taken out the scimitar on her waist. His pupils dilated several times. Almost at the moment when the scimitar was unsheathed, a red light flashed in front of Elder Lu's eyes. Then the world turned upside down, and a headless corpse flashed in front of his eyes. Isn't that my body? Before Elder Lu died, such a doubt flashed in his mind, but soon he couldn't think anymore, and the whole spirit body began to leave. But before his spirit body had time to escape, it was entangled by a suction force. This suction force came from an ancient bell in Hu Qianmei's hand. The mouth of the bell was facing Elder Lu's spirit body. After a while, it was sucked in. I didn't expect the treasure I just picked up to be so useful. This old man's cultivation is definitely not ordinary. His soul is extremely precious. How can I let it go? In the future, when I forge magic weapons, it will definitely be useful. Hu Qianmei's face showed a sly smile. A pair of black fox eyes looked around, then curled the foxtail and quickly fled to the distance. Almost all the things have been plundered. This kind of troublesome place naturally can't stay for long. Hu Qianmei used up all the little profound qi she had and ran all the way. When she encountered some wild beasts, she immediately hid. When she ran to a safe area, she carefully stopped. She looked at the strange box in her hand, but did not dare to open it. Instead, she took out the treasure she had plundered before and rummaged inside. She took out a few bottles, poured out the pills, and sniffed them, then put them in her mouth one by one. The pills gave her a huge amount of profound qi, allowing her almost dried-up body to be nourished, and her spirit essence started to produce profound qi. Then, he continued to search. Finally, he was pleasantly surprised to find a scroll that could conceal one's aura among this large pile of magic treasures. Hu Qianmei anxiously took out the scroll and injected the profound qi to activate it. The scroll immediately exploded, transforming into a golden cover that enveloped the surrounding 100 meters. In that instant, Hu Qianmei realized that he was isolated from the world, and the dense spirit qi that was everywhere in the ultimate martial world immediately disappeared without a trace. Since the elder placed so much importance on this item, it was definitely a treasure. Normally speaking, the aura of a treasure was extremely strong, and if one did not take any precautions, it might attract other existences. Hu Qianmei was extremely cautious, so if there was no shield, she would definitely not carelessly open the treasure. Excellent, excellent. Hu Qianmei beamed. He immediately took out the box and looked at it carefully, then carefully opened it. Roar! Almost at the same time the box was opened, an earth-shattering dragon roar sounded out in Hu Qianmei's mind. Her entire body trembled, and her face turned pale as she retreated. After a while, she recovered and looked at the box again, only to realize that there was actually a small city inside. It was like a model, extremely exquisite. There were houses, streets, plazas, shops, walls, and so on, and right in front of the city was an extremely large gate. On the left and right side of the gate were two golden pillars, and on the pillars were dragons spiraling, and the dragons were actually wriggling, as though they were alive. What is this? Hu Qianmei was confused. Her eyes looked at the embossed words above the gate. True Dragon City? Inside the stone room. Bada. The last cultivation coin turned into a rotten stone and was thrown to the side by Su Yun. Looking at the pile of rotten stones, Su Yun sighed with emotion. Huairou Mu, you had to clean up these rotten stones 5 times a day, adding the consumption of profound energy to maintain the scroll. She was almost overwhelmed. Anything else? Seeing that Su Yun had stopped, the pale-faced Huairou Mu Yu asked weakly. No more. Su Yun exhaled and said, Rest well. I'll do the rest myself. Huairou Mu Yu nodded and immediately retracted her hand. The tadpole characters on the scroll immediately dimmed. She quickly took out a pill and stuffed it into her mouth. She leaned against the wall and closed her eyes to meditate. Su Yun did not waste any time and continued to meditate with his eyes closed. Although he had completely absorbed all the cultivation coins, it was not an easy task to consolidate so much cultivation in one go. Even if he was a big fatty, after eating crazily, his stomach would still be swollen and uncomfortable, unable to digest. What he needed to do now was to digest all the cultivation that he had eaten into his stomach. Huairou Mu Yu then asked Xiao Yin to take out some of the best pills unique to the Huairou family. Complete Blood Pill, Great Yang Pill, and Ancient with Heart Pill. 4 days later, Su Yun's entire body swelled a little, but it was not swelling, but the expansion of his muscles and strength. He looked taller, and his skin overflowed with golden light. His eyes were bright and full of spirit essence. The number of spirit essence in his body had exceeded 100,000. Some of the earliest spirit essence began to mutate, forming more advanced attribute spirit essence. Not only that, the Heart of Origin was also born next to the heart, located on the right side of the Monarch Occult Force, complementing the heart and Monarch Occult Force. In these short 10 days for Su Yun, the harvest was no less than those years when he was taught by Nangong Wentian. His cultivation instantly soared to the 5th grade of Spirit Master, and his battle soared to 7,900 points. This kind of qualitative leap was enough to shock any spirit cultivator. Su Yun, I'll prepare a few more magic treasures for you. Even if you can't beat Dao Shi, at least you won't be killed by him. Inside the stone room, Huairou Mu Yu said softly as she watched Su Yun put on his clothes. No need, with my current strength. It will be very difficult for Dao Shi to kill me. I have absorbed a lot of cultivation coins, and the profound energy in my body is not stable. If I come into contact with a powerful and unfamiliar magic treasure at this time, it will be easy for the profound energy in my body and the power contained in the magic treasure to be confused. Once I use the wrong magic treasure, it will be troublesome, so it is most appropriate to use my own familiar magic treasure to fight him. Su Yun smiled, got up, and walked out the stone door. Huairou Mu Yu immediately followed. Seeing this, Su Yun slightly tilted his head. Muyu, are you really going to Yuqing Mountain with me? What did I joke with you? Huiro Muyu said. Su Yun smiled bitterly. Muyu, thank you. I understand you are doing it for my own good, but do you think I won't worry about you? This is a duel, and it's a duel of life and death. No one knows what will happen. If you stay in the Huiro family, it will be the best help to me. If you appear there, it will only make me worry, understand? However, Huiro Muyu shook her head. Dao Shi doesn't dare to touch me. Aren't you very busy? You've been helping me in the stone room for the past few days. Aren't you going to deal with the business in the Chamber of Commerce? Then you don't have to worry. I've already handed it over to the steward for the time being. Other than major matters, you don't have to report to me. When Su Yin heard this, he didn't know what to say. The beauty was so determined, and it was also a kind intention. If he said anything else, it would seem that Su Yin was a bit unreasonable. Since you've already made up your mind, then all right, you can come with me. After saying that, Su Yin stepped out of the embroidery pavilion, took out the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword, and floated in front of the two. Flying sword? Huiro Muyu frowned slightly. Let's go in my carriage. It's faster. My sword speed is not slow. Su Yin laughed, grabbed Huiro Muyu, and stepped on it. Almost instantly, the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword shot out like a meteor across the sky, flying out of Wuyi City in an instant. Huiro Muyu was stunned for a moment. Before she could react, she had already left Wuyi City. When she recovered, she hurriedly opened Su Yun's arm and stood behind the flying sword. Her expression was calm, but her fair cheeks were overflowing with a trace of redness. Her voice was a little low. Don't you know etiquette? Su Yun was slightly startled, then smiled awkwardly and did not answer. Also, in Wuyi City, other than my Huiro family's carriage, no one is allowed to fly in the city. If it weren't for your speed, I'm afraid you would have been taken down by the city's defenses. Huiro Muyu said. However, she was still very shocked. The speed at which Su Yun left the city, just now, was simply fast to a whole new realm. In the blink of an eye, he had left the city. Many spirit cultivators in the city probably did not even have time to react. Compared to the current speed, it was many times faster than before. This guy cultivates the divine wind sword technique. His speed is astonishing, but I don't know what realm his sword technique has reached, and his imperial sword technique is also very strange. Who did he practice martial arts under before? Huiro Muyu secretly thought. After an unknown period of time, the scenery on the ground changed rapidly, and soon, the two entered the territory of Yuqing Mountain. This barren mountain was very desolate. Not to mention people, it was difficult to even see a fierce beast. The entire mountain was covered with rotten rocks and withered grass. At a glance, it was bare. The two of them landed on the ground. Su Yun immediately took out a pill and put it in his mouth. At the same time, he waved his hand and took out more than 10 subordinate swords. One by one, he inserted them behind him. Then, he stood quietly, waiting for the arrival of Dao Shi. Huiro Muyu consciously retreated and looked 100 meters away from Su Yun. The two of them didn't speak, and there was only the sound of the wind around them. Su Yun closed his eyes slightly and continued to rest. At this moment, he didn't dare to waste a single bit of time to adjust the new strength in his body. However, just after noon, a somewhat playful voice floated over from the sky. You have courage. You have courage. You actually came to the appointment. Su Yun, are you so eager to be beaten into a useless dog by me? The voice floated over, and several figures rushed over. Su Yun looked over and saw that it was Dao Shi and the others from the Quick Blade sect. Chapter 468. Dao Shi, is your Quick Blade sect's most powerful skill in talking? You're already shouting before the fight starts? What? Are you all dogs? Su Yun didn't show any weakness and fought back. He wasn't afraid of spitting. When Dao Shi heard this, his face changed for a while, and then he said coldly, Su Yun, I'm too lazy to argue with you. As his voice fell, a group of people landed on the ground. There were a total of 6 experts from the Quick Blade sect. They all retreated and stood not far away like Huiro Muyu. Only Su Yun and Dao Shi were left in the center of the Jade Mountain. The two of them stood facing each other without saying a word. Su Yun's expression was serious, his eyes focused, and he was very serious. On the other hand, there was a trace of disdain on Dao Shi's face. With Long Zhen's wristband shielding him, he could not see through Su Yun's cultivation. Although he guessed that Su Yun's cultivation would increase with Huairou Muyu's help in the next few days, but even if it increased, how much could it increase? How could a first-stage cultivation surpass his sixth-stage cultivation in just 10 days? Dao Shi had the capital to be arrogant. In the past 10 days, he was not unprepared. At least in New Deer City, he had collected all the information about Su Yun. This kid is said to be a fast sword. Even Li Chongzai's fast sword is not as good as his. He must have some skills, but I'm not afraid of you in terms of speed. Dao Shi thought, then snorted, Su Yun, you brought the young lady of the Huairou family here. Are you afraid that I will kill you so you can use her as your talisman? I'm here today to settle the grudge between me and your Quick Blade sect. Don't talk nonsense. If you want to fight, then fight. Miss Huairou is just a bystander and will not interfere in the battle between us. Su Yun said lightly. He had already begun to accumulate the Wind God realm, so he didn't want to talk nonsense with Dao Shi. Seeing Su Yun's arrogant tone, it would be a lie if Dao Shi said he wasn't angry. He snorted, but did not pull out his blade. Instead, he crossed his arms over his chest and took a step forward. He stretched out a hand and hooked it at Su Yun. Since you're in such a hurry to die, then let's do it. As an elder, I'll give you 10 moves. Again, Su Yun's expression gradually became sinister. His eyes flashed with a burst of essence energy as he stared at Dao Shi like a vicious tiger. Since Dao Shi was so arrogant, he would not be polite. He stepped forward, took a deep breath, and instantly entered the realm of the Wind God. Then, he transformed into a gust of wind and charged forward. Almost at the same time, the dozen or so swords behind him also flew out and rushed towards Dao Shi. Dao Shi's somewhat casual expression immediately became serious. Quick, so fast. His god level instantly reacted. The thin blade at his waist instantly unsheathed and slashed toward Su Yun. Clang! A saber and a sword collided. Looking at Su Yun's ferocious expression, the trace of contempt in Dao Shi's heart immediately disappeared without a trace. He was secretly surprised. This kid really has some skills. 10 moves? Suddenly, he realized that he didn't have the qualifications to let his opponent have 10 moves. However, this was not the end. The dozen or so swords that rushed over were divided into 2 groups, 1 for 7. They lined up and formed a circle. They landed on Dao Shi's head and began to circle. At the same time, 4 strange flying swords that emitted cold air also collided. They crazily vented their ice power, trying to condense Dao Shi's body and slow his movements. This is sword formation. Dao Shi was taken aback. This should be 2 independent sword formations. It should be very difficult for a first-grade spirit master to activate 2 sword formations at the same time. Even if he could do it, how could he have the strength to contend against him? It was impossible for anyone to activate 2 sword formations at the same time and still be able to fight with others. After all, he was only a first-grade person, and his profound chi was not so dense. Could it be that he only wanted to rely on this sword formation to defeat me? Isn't this too arrogant? Dao Shi growled and activated his profound chi to shatter the thin ice condensed on his body. He forcefully used his aura to slash Su Yun. The profound chi used by the Quick Blade sect was a very special kind of profound chi. It was many levels higher than the Swift Wind Spirit chi. It was similar to the Pure Divine Spirit chi. Su Yun's Pure Divine Spirit chi was not cultivated. After all, he had the Monarch Occult Force. He did not work on a single aura attribute, but Dao Shi was different. He only cultivated one kind of aura, which was the aura that danced on the blade. Almost in an instant, the blade bloomed with 700 blade shadows. The sky was filled with blade intent. Su Yun activated the Frost Sword formation and the 7 Ascension killing formation. The profound chi in his body surged, supporting the 2 large formations. At this juncture, he did not know how to compete with Dao Shi in terms of speed. He hurriedly retreated. With a flick of his arm, a row of sword shadows swung out. The sound of the sword breaking through the air seemed to be a sharp sword cutting through the breeze. When each sword shadow slammed into the blade shadow, Daoshi no longer dared to underestimate Su Yun. To be able to activate two sword formations and still have such speed, how could this be an ordinary person? The frost power of the frost sword formation seemed to be difficult to add to Daoshi's body. Every time frost condensed on Daoshi's body, it would be shattered by his aura. Now, only the 7 Ascension killing formation could be seen. Su Yun waved his hand and removed the frost sword formation. There was only one sword formation left, and it did not require too much profound energy to maintain. He took a deep breath and rushed towards Daoshi with the mysterious scarlet blood sword in his hand. The divine wind sword technique was unleashed without the slightest reservation. Sword howling earth. Su Yun's sword struck the ground, and a large amount of sword chi emerged from the surface of the ground and rushed towards Daoshi. Daoshi's expression changed slightly, and he immediately jumped up. Su Yun took advantage of the situation and moved his finger. The 7 Ascension killing formation in the air immediately attacked Daoshi. The 7 swords spread out and surrounded him like an inescapable net. Then, the 7 swords began to attack him fiercely. Each sword was like a poisonous snake, cold and sinister, vowing to kill Daoshi. Daoshi quickly brandished his saber and split apart the 7 swords. Although the attack speed of these 7 swords was not fast, and he could completely block them, the destructive power of each sword was terrifying beyond compare. This was a power that came from killing intent. This sword actually had killing intent. This sword formation was terrifying. Daoshi broke out in a cold sweat. Whoosh! At this time, another wave of cold sword chi came from behind. He hurriedly turned around and slashed horizontally with his saber. But this time, it was not the sword of the 7 Ascension sword formation, but Su Yun. He held the mysterious scarlet blood sword and slashed out 1,000 sword shadows, catching Daoshi off guard. So fast. When did that brat Su Yun get behind me? Daoshi was shocked. Not to mention him, even Huiro Muyu and the people from the Quick Blade sect didn't react. A second ago, Su Yun was still dozens of meters away from Daoshi. Su Yun was caught off guard, so Daoshi didn't have time to defend. In less than a breath, a large number of hair-thin sword marks appeared on his body. The sword chi wriggled at these sword marks and quickly drilled into Daoshi's body like a living creature, pouring into the chi meridian. He was shocked and hurriedly left Su Yun to retreat, intending to use profound chi to stop these strange auras. However, Su Yun seemed to be prepared. At this moment, he launched a storm-like attack, not giving Daoshi the slightest chance to catch his breath. Daoshi was completely suppressed, and the sword chi that invaded his body also began to cause chaos at this moment. They crashed into the chi meridian and cut through the wall of the meridian. The profound chi in his body was in a mess, and it was difficult to gather it. Daoshi's breath was not smooth, and he directly spat out a mouthful of blood. Su Yun did not dodge, allowing the blood to fall on his chest. With a serious face, he wanted to take advantage of the chaos at Daoshi's feet and directly cut him. The chaotic sword shadows intertwined, and the disciples of the Quick Blade sect were already stunned. Strong, so strong, to be able to not lose to the sect leader in speed. This person really had the ability. At this moment, no one in the Quick Blade sect dared to underestimate Su Yun. This was not the way to go on. Daoshi was forced by Su Yun to not even have a chance to breathe. He knew that from the beginning, he had been tricked by Su Yun. Those 2 formations might be a trap. He didn't dare to slack off and immediately activated his magic treasure. As the sword and saber clashed, a golden bead appeared on the finger of his left hand, and he pinched it, bada. The bead shattered, and a circle of air rippled out from inside, directly hitting the 2 of them and floating into the distance. Even Huiro Muyu and the disciples of the Quick Blade sect were affected, and they were forced to retreat. After pulling away from Su Yun, Daoshi immediately took out a pill and stuffed it into his mouth. Then, he gasped for breath and exhaled a circle of gray wind. In such a short period of time, he forced out the evil force that Su Yun had poured into his body. This Daoshi was really not simple. Su Yun frowned and removed the 7 Ascension killing formation. Daoshi's cultivation was 1 level higher than his. Although it was only 1 level, it was the difference between the 5th and 6th level of Spirit Master. This level difference, even if it was 1 level of cultivation, was already like the difference between heaven and earth. What's more, Su Yun's 5th level of Spirit Master was completely born. He was still very tender. How could he compare with Daoshi? The 7 Ascension killing formation couldn't do anything to Daoshi, but at least he had some advantages. Daoshi's current state was definitely not good. Su Yun didn't stand on ceremony. He took out a special qi replenishing pill provided by Huairou Muyu and stuffed it into his mouth. He immediately held the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword and prepared to kill another wave. When the pill entered his stomach, the profound qi around Su Yun's body increased at an astonishing speed. The profound qi that had been consumed before increased wildly, and in the blink of an eye, it returned to its full state. Daoshi was stunned. He suddenly thought of something and stared at Huairou Muyu in the distance. He sneered. No wonder Su Yun was able to fight so desperately. So it was Miss Huairou who provided the best quality pill. Hey, is this match fair? It's not fair for you to fight Su Yun with your 6th level of Spirit Master cultivation. How can you talk about fairness? What's more, when you arranged the battle, you didn't say that you couldn't take the pill. But just now, you took the pill first. What can you say? If Su Yun didn't bring the pill, would you say it's unfair? Now that his pill is better than yours, you're complaining. Sect leader? I don't think it's anything more than this. Huairou Muyu said lightly, then shook her head with a trace of disdain in her eyes. This Daoshi's actions really didn't seem like the style of a sect leader. I'm too lazy to argue with you. Daoshi was angry, and his eyes became ferocious. He stared at Su Yun with a murderous look and growled. Su Yun, I just gave you 10 moves. Now, I'm going to be serious. Chapter 469. From the beginning, when Su Yun launched his attack, Daoshi saw that Su Yun was extraordinary. At that time, he was already serious. The reason why he said such a sentence was because he could now fight back. Of course, being stubborn was also one aspect. However, Su Yun, who had taken the initiative, was not in a good state. Even if he began to counterattack, Su Yun was not afraid. I'll let you have a taste of my famous skill, Divine Saber conquering the world. Daoshi roared, and the profound qi in his body suddenly surged. It was like a huge balloon with thousands of holes, crazily leaking in all directions. The qi that leaked out from his body did not spread in all directions. Instead, it was like a living thing that gathered on the blade in his hand. In an instant, the wild blade was restless, and the blade in Daoshi's hand underwent an earth-shattering change. If it was just a withered tree before, now it had turned over and become a lush tree that supported the sky. He took a step forward and quickly waved at Su Yun. Only one strike, but this time, he struck out 1,000 blade shadows. There were thousands of attacks. Even if Su Yun activated the Divine Wind Sword technique, this was the limit. Daoshi, as the sect leader of the Quick Blade sect, had cultivated the Quick Blade technique for nearly 1,000 years. Although Su Yun cultivated the Divine Wind Sword technique, the level of his sword technique was far above his Quick Blade technique. But Su Yun lost in terms of concept. Even in Nangong Wentian's heart world, it was still not enough to thoroughly comprehend the Divine Wind Sword technique. Any profound skill required a spirit cultivator to be familiar with it for many years. Even if this profound skill was already familiar with it, it was still not enough because there was a higher level above it. If Su Yun was already familiar with the Divine Wind Sword technique, then Daoshi would be able to understand and master his Quick Blade technique. This was Daoshi's advantage in time. Even if Su Yun took a shortcut, he would not be able to catch up. A person who had cultivated for 10 years was actually far stronger than a person who had suddenly obtained 10 years of cultivation, because the latter did not understand the hardship and bitterness of the former. However, Su Yun acted as if he did not see anything when the 1,000 blade shadows came slashing at him with overbearing momentum. He stepped forward like a dragon and directly raised his sword. The tip of the sword was aimed at Dao Shi, and he made a stabbing action. Seeing Su Yun's action, Dao Shi's heart seemed to be ignited, and his anger soared to the sky. Su Yun was obviously planning to fight him head-on. Preposterous. He was too arrogant. Did he think that he could contend against his swift blade? "Let me cut you into pieces, you arrogant brat." Dao Shi roared angrily, no longer holding back, concentrating almost all his strength on the blade in his hand. In an instant, the saber became faster, fiercer, and stronger. With Su Yun's strength, he would definitely not be able to withstand Dao Shi's attack. Huai Muyu frowned. A look of worry flashed past her eyes. The disciples of the Quick Blade sect stood up excitedly. They would never forget such a brilliant strike in their lives. "Looks like Sect Master is going to win." The few of them stared at the scene and sighed with emotion. They were also people who understood the speed of the saber. They naturally understood the terror of Dao Shi's move. Even if it was them, it would be impossible for them to take down this move. But just when everyone thought that this move would decide the outcome of the battle, something unexpected happened. Su Yun suddenly raised his left hand and took out another order flag. Crash! A grayish-white chi cover enveloped his body in an instant. The fast saber struck the chi cover, but no matter how terrifying the power of the saber was, it could not break the chi cover. What? Everyone was shocked. Magic treasure? Dao Shi was even more frightened, his eyes wide open. He understood his destructive power. Even an ordinary Imperial equipment wouldn't be able to easily withstand this move. However, Su Yun's magic treasure not only withstood it, but it was also unharmed. "You lost," Su Yun shouted, suddenly removed the Imperial equipment, and threw the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword in his hand. Similarly, 1,000 swords in a second. The messy sword shadows were like meteors streaking across the night sky, shuttling around Dao Shi. Dao Shi's body was hit by 1,000 swords, and his important parts were directly penetrated by the long sword. His chi meridian was cut off, and his combat power was greatly reduced. At the end of the move, Su Yun retreated. He heaved a sigh of relief and calmly looked at Dao Shi. At this time, Dao Shi was like a stone standing quietly in place. But after a few seconds, with a hiss, a large amount of blood gushed out from his body. Then, Dao Shi's body trembled a few times, and his entire body fell to the ground. His chi meridian was cut off, and the profound chi in his body was in chaos. His internal organs were attacked, and the intense pain caused him to faint. The outcome was decided. Dao Shi lost. No one expected that the dignified Quick Blade sect leader would lose so quickly and miserably. In fact, the reason was very simple. Dao Shi underestimated his opponent. He never thought that Su Yun would have a magic treasure that was almost invincible to him. That was a 7th-tier Imperial equipment. Imperial equipment was a treasure. In the Gathering Heart realm, there were very few spirit cultivators who could have Imperial equipment. Having Imperial equipment meant that one's life was guaranteed. This was something that everyone wanted. Even in Beiyang, there weren't many Imperial equipment on hand. What's more, most of the people who had weapons were only level 40 Imperial equipment. Even level 30 Imperial equipment was very rare. It was almost impossible for someone like Su Yun to have a 7th-tier Imperial equipment in his hand. A 7th-tier defensive Imperial equipment. I'm afraid that a Spirit Master level person, no matter what grade, wouldn't be able to destroy him at all. The few Quick Blade sect disciples helped Dao Shi up. One of them injected chi into his body, controlling the turbulent Xian energy in Dao Shi's body. The other took out a pill and consumed it. Everyone was taking emergency measures. After a while, Dao Shi finally recovered, but his current state was that he no longer had the power to fight. "You lost," Su Yun said lightly. "According to the agreement, I will write off the matter with the Quick Blade sect. Goodbye." After saying that, Su Yun turned around and was about to leave with Huai Muyu. "Damn it! Stop!" At this time, Dao Shi stood up angrily and shouted at Su Yun, "I don't accept it. You used despicable means to win. I don't accept it. Let's compete again." Despicable means? Su Yun said coldly. Another trash who can't afford to lose? Tell me, where did I use despicable means? Your magic treasure must be of a very high grade. It must have been given to you by Huairou Muyu. You only defeated me with the help of the Huairou family. If you rely on your own ability, you are definitely not my opponent. Yes, you are definitely not, Daosher said angrily. However, his words had completely infuriated Su Yun. So what do you want? Fight again? His voice was cold, like a cold blade. A dark aura flashed in his eyes, and in this darkness, there was a little red light. Daosher was not in a good state and did not notice the change in Su Yun. He snorted and said, How can I fight you again in this state? I want to rest for a month and fight you again. Su Yun, we will fight again in a month. I don't have time to waste with you. Daosher, if you lose, you lose. Why do you have so many excuses? Su Yun, you don't dare to take it? If that's the case, then don't even think about leaving today. Daosher shouted and then waved his hand. In an instant, the masters of the Quick Blade sect behind him all pulled out the thin blade from their waists and rushed up. Seeing this, Huairou Muyu's face suddenly changed. She hurriedly shouted, Daosher, what are you doing? If you dare to hurt Su Yun, I will destroy your Quick Blade sect. Miss Huairou, please forgive me. Today's battle is related to the reputation of my Quick Blade sect. Su Yun won by despicable means in the battle. If it gets out, the reputation of my Quick Blade sect will be destroyed. This matter is of great importance. I can't let it go. If I don't kill Su Yun today, I will not be able to resolve my hatred. As for the Huairou family, I will personally explain this matter to your family master, as long as he does not blame us. Daosher said coldly. After all, Huairou Muyu was not the family master of the Huairou family. He did not feel that offending Huairou Muyu was equivalent to offending the Huairou family. Huairou Muyu's eyes were like a cold knife, and her beautiful face was like ice. She clenched her teeth and said in a fierce voice, Daosher, since you think that my father is the master of the Huairou family, I have no right to ask, then you should be prepared to pay the price. No matter what the outcome is today, the Quick Blade sect will be removed. I can swear here. After saying that, she took out a strange token and pressed her hand on it. She closed her eyes and injected a bit of profound qi. The token immediately burst out a lot of light. After a while, the token dimmed. Huairou Muyu shouted at Su Yun, Su Yun, don't worry, the experts of the Huairou family are coming here. We can be saved if we hold on. But, with that said, Su Yun laughed out loud. Saved? No, Su Yun, am not that weak. The corners of his mouth curled up strangely, and his eyes were completely covered by a dark, evil aura. Facing several disciples of the Quick Blade sect, he stabbed the immortal, mystical scarlet blood sword in his hand into the ground, then took the dark sword from his back and walked quickly towards the people of the Quick Blade sect. What was he going to do? Daosher was stunned. These people are the top experts of my Quick Blade sect. Each of them is around the 5th grade of Spirit Master. No matter how strong Su Yun is, it is impossible for him to deal with so many experts. But the truth was beyond his imagination. When the dark sword was unsheathed by Su Yun's aura and concept instantly changed. A cold, violent, arrogant, and terrifying concept began to rise from the Jade Mountain. There was a ferocious smile on his mouth, and his eyes were full of ridicule. He stared at the 4 people rushing towards him with excitement, as if he was eager to kill. In this short period of time, Su Yun's entire person seemed to have changed. Suddenly, Su Yun waved his sword at the front of the Quick Blade sect, while on nearly 1,000 sword qi floated over. Seeing this, the Quick Blade sect disciple's heart tightened, and he immediately stopped brandishing his blade to resist. However, when the sword qi approached him, it actually transformed into a large number of evil spirits, pouncing towards his body like ferocious beasts. The Quick Blade sect disciple didn't have time to react and was instantly shocked by this strange phenomenon. Be careful, the people behind him shouted, but it was too late. The evil soul was like a swarm of locusts. It immediately pounced on him and began to crazily gnaw at his flesh, bones, and internal organs. In an instant, the expert of the Quick Blade sect was completely devoured. Only a few bloodstains were left on the ground. Not only that, even the overflowing soul was also devoured by the evil soul. The black sword in Su Yun's hand was flashing with a black light, and a strange gulp sound came out, as if it was eating. Chapter 470. What's going on? Huayro Muyu looked at Su Yun in a daze. She suddenly felt that Su Yun was extremely strange at this moment. He had completely changed his appearance. In an instant, the 5th grade spirit master existence was killed. This method shocked everyone present. Dao Shi was dumbfounded, completely dumbfounded. He never thought that Su Yun's sudden burst of power would be so terrifying. Was he holding back when he fought with me? Even I can't do this. No. Isn't he a 1st grade spirit master cultivation? How could he be so strong? What is his strength? How much combat power does he have now? Full of doubts made Dao Shi completely confused. Su Yun was like a hot knife through butter. He stepped forward and slashed with his sword. Thousands of evil spirits rushed out. Hiss! The shrill cries of evil souls filled the world. The entire Yuqing Mountain was filled with demons, and the turbulent scene was creepy. These Quick Blade sect members were no match for Su Yun at all. They waved their blades with all their might. Their bodies were wrapped in Xian energy and incomparably dense blade shadows as they approached Su Yun bit by bit. However, in the face of the evil souls, these blade shadows were useless. These evil souls didn't seem to be afraid of these blades at all. They directly attacked their bodies through the blade shadows. The experts of the Quick Blade sect could only hold on for a few seconds before their bodies were torn apart by the evil souls. The scene was bloody and terrifying. The sudden outbreak was almost impossible to adapt to. Stop! At this moment, a crisp voice rang out. Huayro Muyu was slightly surprised. She looked in the direction of the voice and saw the sword sheath on Su Yun's waist flickering. A moment later, a white light overflowed and landed beside Su Yun. The white light dissipated. It was a girl with long hair that almost hung down to her feet. She was dressed in snow-white clothes. The girl's face was anxious. After she appeared, she immediately pressed Su Yun's arms, as if she wanted to stop him. When Su Yun heard the loud shout, his entire body twitched, and he suddenly came to his senses. The black chi in his eyes dissipated a little. He anxiously stopped in his tracks, raised the black sword in his hand, and used all his strength to send it into the sword's sheath on his waist. The long sword continued to tremble, and the sword made a buzzing sound, but Su Yun did not care. He did not even look at the 2 remaining Quick Blade sect disciples in front of him. He seemed to be completely focused on the sword. But at that moment, everyone present, including Huayro Muyu, were stunned by Su Yun's methods. How could the people from the Quick Blade sect have the guts to be enemies with Su Yun? Clang! Finally, the death sword was kept back. Su Yun felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He sat on the ground and panted with all his might. Seeing that, Huayro Muyu immediately ran over. Su Yun, are you all right? What happened just now? She asked softly. Sure enough, 10 days of cultivation increase has its drawbacks. Su Yun spat out a mouthful of turbid air and smiled bitterly. Just now, when I was fighting with Dao Shi, the profound chi in my body was turbulent. My cultivation was not stable enough, and then Dao Shi went back on his words, which made me very angry. There was a gap in my state of mind, which made the evil aura in my body respond to this sword, prompting the scene just now. Once I pull out this sword, if I don't deliberately restrain it, then I will be completely replaced by killing. It will be very difficult to find myself, so under normal circumstances, I will not use this sword. Su Yun touched the death sword, then turned to the girl in white beside him and said, Thank you, Qing Yu. If you hadn't appeared in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. If it was in the past, you definitely wouldn't have been like this. This time, the death sword took advantage of you, but it's because you have absorbed a lot of cultivation in the past 10 days. Ling Qing Yu let out a sigh of relief. She glanced at Huayro Muyu, then looked at the dumbfounded Dao Shi. Then she snorted and didn't say anything else. She turned into a white light and entered the sword sheath. Seeing this, Su Yun was confused. Why did she leave without saying a word? But now was not the time to chat with her. Su Yun took out another pill given by Huai Romuyu, stuffed it into his mouth, and stood up. Although the death sword had only used a few swords, it had consumed most of his profound energy. Once his profound energy was exhausted, the death sword would use his own strength until it was exhausted. Although the death sword was a sword that Su Yun had obtained very early, it was also the sword that Su Yun could not see through the most. The limitless sword arts had not been refined yet, so Su Yun did not plan to go to the sword sheath for the time being. These swords were enough for now. He stood up, let out a breath, and then walked towards Dao, sure step by step. The remaining two experts of the Quick Blade sect did not dare to step forward. They looked at Su Yun nervously. Su Yun didn't say a word and directly pulled out the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he stared at Dao Shi. If you respect me, I will respect you 10 times. If you want to kill me today, then you can't blame me for being ruthless now. When Dao Shi heard this, he immediately panicked. Su Yun, what are you going to do? What did you say you were going to do? Su Yun snorted, raised the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword, and directly slashed at Dao Shi's neck. Dao Shi was shocked and used his last bit of strength to resist, but the flying sword didn't seem to be really prepared to cut off his neck. The immortal mystical scarlet blood sword suddenly changed its trajectory and directly struck the blade in Dao Shi's hand. The speed was not fast, but it was very accurate, and its power was astonishing. Clang! Dao Shi was already seriously injured, and he was unprepared. This astonishing sword attack instantly blew his blade out of his hand, flying in a circle in the air and falling to the ground not far away. Dao Shi was shocked. However, Su Yun waved his hand, and the sword sheath behind him buzzed. In an instant, thousands of flying swords flew out, shooting into the sky like a torrent, and then split apart, surrounding Dao Shi in a circle. Dao Shi was like a hornet's nest, surrounded by dense flying swords. This scene made people's scalps tingle. Seeing such a terrifying scene, Dao Shi knew that he was powerless to resist. Even if he had a defensive magic treasure, he didn't have much Xian energy to activate it. Immediately, he turned his head and trembled. Su Yun, stop. If there's anything to talk about, I'll admit that I lost. Su Yun, stop. However, Su Yun shook his head mercilessly. It's too late to admit defeat now. Since I've decided to kill you, I won't go back on my word. As his voice fell, he moved his fingers. Voila! 1,000 flying swords used Dao Shi's body as a bull's eye and rushed forward together. Dao Shi tried to use Xian energy to resist, but this was just a dying struggle. The flying sword pierced through the Xian energy and directly pierced into his body. Poochie. After a while, Dao Shi's body was pierced into pieces, 3 souls and 7 spirits flew out. Su Yun took out the death sword and threw it into the air. The death sword drew a perfect arc in the air, then flew back and returned to the sheath. Su Yun raised his finger, and the flying sword returned to the sword sheath. Everything vanished like smoke and returned to its original state. Huai Romuyu had known Su Yun for a period of time and had some understanding of him. He was a stubborn person. He would always think of ways to help those who treated him well, and for those who wanted to harm him, he would always pay any price to destroy them. Sometimes he did things without considering the consequences. This guy, Huai Romuyu sighed slightly, then raised her head and said to the 2 Quick Blade sect disciples who had long been scared silly, "Go back to the Quick Blade sect and inform everyone in the Quick Blade sect that the Huairo family will clean up the Quick Blade sect in the future. Those who don't want to be implicated immediately leave the Quick Blade sect, or else bear the consequences. Do you understand?" These words were like an imperial edict. When the 2 of them heard this, their faces turned pale and they nodded repeatedly. They didn't dare to stay here for another second and immediately took out their blades and left. Once the 2 of them left, Su Yun's face relaxed. He walked to a large rock and sat down. He exhaled fiercely and said, "It's finally over. I thought it would end easily, but I didn't expect so many things to happen. Indeed, I didn't expect it, but what I didn't expect was that you actually hid so many tricks. I was thinking, if you didn't have those cultivation coins to help you, would you be able to defeat Daoshi? Huayro Muyu walked over and said softly, "You're thinking too much." Su Yin shook his head. "First grade of Spirit Master. Unless I pull out the Death Sword, I have no chance of winning. But if I take out the Death Sword, I have already lost half of it." "Oh." Huayro Muyu glanced at the black sword on Su Yun's waist, blinked slightly, and said, "What kind of sword is this?" "Sovereign King's sword." Su Yun looked at the Death Sword and said softly, "But its power is far more than that. In fact, I'm not very sure either." Huayro Muyu didn't seem to understand, but she didn't say anything. "Miss." At this moment, shouts came from afar. Huayro Muyu looked over and saw a large number of Huayro family experts flying over. They landed one by one and bowed to Huayro Muyu at the same time. "This subordinate's guard is late. Please punish me, miss." "Miss, are you okay?" These people were full of worry. "I'm fine, but you guys are too slow," Huayro Muyu said softly. Everyone shivered and quickly knelt down and kowtowed, begging for Huayro Muyu's forgiveness. Huayro Muyu didn't make things difficult for them. She gently waved her hand and let them get up. "Su Yin, what are you going to do next? After absorbing the cultivation coins, your combat power has skyrocketed. You now have the qualifications to enter Beiyang. Are you going to Beiyang now?" Huayro Muyu turned her gaze and looked at Su Yun. Su Yun nodded. "I'll consolidate my cultivation and go straight to Beiyang." He was constantly thinking about his family. He also wanted to ask his parents why they had been so silent for so many years, why they hadn't revealed any information to him at all, and that sister he had never met. He wanted to know everything about them. Huayro Muyu was intelligent and could understand Su Yun's thoughts, so she didn't ask him to stay. "If you want to consolidate your cultivation, there is no place more suitable than my Huayro family's training grounds. Su Yun, come to my Huayro family and stay for a few more days. I'll order someone to prepare a map for you and help you enter Beiyang. How about it?" Hearing that, Su Yun was overjoyed and said gratefully, "Thank you, Muyu." "No need, we are friends after all," Huayro Muyu said gently. Chapter 471. After returning to the Huayro family, Huayro Muyu arranged for Su Yun to go to the Huayro family's common training field. This training field was not like the stone room in her embroidered pavilion. This was only a training field used purely for cultivation, not a place to absorb cultivation coins. Su Yun had absorbed too many cultivation coins. If he continued to absorb them, it would only cause a burden on his body. There weren't many decorations in this training field. There were only formations laid out. The training field was huge, but it was empty. It was said that only the people of the Huayro family could enter this place. Under Huayro Muyu's arrangement, Su Yun sat in the center of the purple formation. He closed his eyes and sat cross-legged, harmonizing the profound energy in his body. The purple formation rotated gently, releasing circles of mysterious aura. This aura was like a spirit, constantly rotating around Su Yun. During the rotation, these spirits gradually sublimated, turning into golden halos. Then, all of them overflowed into Su Yun's body, melting the cultivation that was difficult to digest like ice. They were absorbed into Su Yun's body and transformed into his own cultivation. The effect of the purple formation was extremely good. It was unknown how many precious materials were needed to set up such a formation. Su Yun slowly absorbed it, enjoying the feeling of having all of his strength in his hands. After an unknown period of time, the cultivation in his body gradually interpreted, and his cultivation seemed to have advanced a step. The current Su Yun was completely different from the Su Yun who had fought with Daoshi. Perhaps the difference in strength wasn't too big, but Su Yun's concept had undergone an earth-shattering change. The former was like the surface, while the latter was the inside. Kacha! Just as Su Yun was enjoying the benefits of his cultivation being gradually consolidated, the door to the training ground suddenly opened on its own. Su Yun was slightly taken aback. He opened his eyes and looked towards the door, only to see a man walking in. This person was wearing a white and yellow robe. He had black hair and was very handsome. It was Yi Mo Xian. He held a folding fan with a trace of thought on his face. When he entered and saw the person inside, he was stunned for a moment. A moment later, the corner of his mouth raised into a strange smile. I thought it was one of my sisters-in-law cultivating here. I didn't expect it to be a guy who lives off a woman. Living off a woman? Su Yun frowned. I've heard everything. Yimo Xian waved his fan and smiled faintly. Not only did my sister provide you with her cultivation place, she also gave you an additional 20 million profound coins. TSK, TSK, TSK. How can an ordinary person enjoy such a great favor? Don't you know? My sister's stone cultivation room has a time limit. It can only be used for 50 years. Once it's used up, it can't be used again. She doesn't even have enough for herself, but she lent it to you. How special is she to you? Aren't you living off a woman? Hearing that, Su Yun was stunned. He didn't know that the stone room was like this. But what did Yi Maxin mean by that? Does Huai Romu you like me? That shouldn't be possible, right? How could such a proud and aloof woman fall in love with someone else so easily? Perhaps it was because he had saved her time and time again, and she simply wanted to repay him? Suyin thought for a moment and let out a sigh. Then, he looked up at Yimo Xian and retorted, I'm just living off a woman. What do you do to me? Listening to your sour tone. Do you want to eat it too? Then I'm sorry, ordinary people really can't eat this kind of soft rice. When Yimo Xian heard this, he immediately became angry. Suyin glanced at him and ignored him. He continued to cultivate with his eyes closed. Yimo Xian knew that Su Yun was purposely angering him. After taking a deep breath, he secretly snorted, I wonder where this despicable cultivator came from. Don't think that just because you got my sister, you can do whatever you want. This is the Huai Ro family, not your home. If you don't follow the rules, I can chase you away at any time. It's not up to you to say whether I follow the rules or not. Suyin opened his eyes and said indifferently, Yimo Xian sneered, Is that so? Then we'll see. After saying that, he turned around and walked out of the door. It seemed that Su Yun was here and he didn't want to stay here anymore. However, just as Yimo Xian was about to leave, the door opened again and a beautiful figure walked over. The two of them looked at each other. It was Huai Ro Muyu. When Yimo Xian saw the person who came, his originally cold smile immediately turned into a warm smile. He took a few steps forward and said with a warm smile, My sister, you're here. Are you here to cultivate? Oh, big brother, you're here too. Huai Ro Muyu didn't answer him. Instead, she looked surprised. I'm not like you. I still have to manage the Chamber of Commerce. Other than cultivating, I don't know what else to do. I only hope that one day, I can make some contributions to the Huai Ro family. Yimo Xian said with a bitter smile. If Big Brother really has such thoughts, then that would be for the best. Huai Ro Muyu said, although it was just a very ordinary sentence. When it entered Su Yun's ears, he felt that it was very strange. Yimo Xian's face revealed a slightly strange smile. Then he said, All right, my sister, I still have some things to take care of, so I won't talk to you for long. I'll be leaving first. Brother, take care. Yimo Xian nodded and turned to leave with a strange expression on his face. Huai Ro Muyu quietly watched him leave. When he walked out of the door, she turned her head and looked at Su Yun quietly. When did he come? Before you came? Did he make things difficult for you? I don't think so, but I have no enmity with your big brother. Why is he always making things difficult for me? Maybe the misunderstanding last time made him feel disgusted with you. I don't think so. I think he probably thought that I got close to you for the Sacred Heart. Su Yun smiled and said, There's always a sense of vigilance in his eyes. This guy doesn't know how to hide it. I can tell a glance. Huai Ro Muyu looked at him and was silent for a moment. Then she said, In the past few days, I have completed the annexation of the Liu family. Hearing that, Su Yun was stunned for a moment. He shook his head and said, I didn't expect you to be so fast. With a good excuse, I can openly suppress the Liu family. Although the Liu family has developed rapidly, in front of Huai Ro's huge business empire, they can't even withstand a single blow. Most of the people from the Liu family have already escaped. Lu Yiwen committed suicide, and the people from the Huai Ro family are currently stationed in Beizhou City. Su Yun didn't say anything. Suddenly, he felt that this woman was very terrifying. Huai you didn't know about the matter between him and Lu Yuan, but she had come up with this plan in a hurry. She had even single-handedly caused the destruction of the Liuye family. If Lu Yuan was completely unprepared, it would be better to say that Huai Yu's thoughts were meticulous. But there's one thing that worries me. At this moment, Huai Yu spoke again. Su Yun was slightly startled. He raised his eyes and looked at her. What are you worried about? After taking down Beizhou City, Father suddenly arranged for a group of people under Butler Mu's management to be stationed in Beizhou City. A trace of worry appeared between Huai Yu's eyebrows. Butler Mu, he is the steward of our Huai family. Their family has been doing their best to assist our Huai family for generations. My father treats Butler Mu as a brother, and Butler Mu has a sufficient status in the Huai family, almost the same as me. However, I should be in charge of the Beizhou City's major plan to enter Beiyang. Why would father let Butler Mu take care of the Beizhou City's business? Maybe your father doesn't want you to be too tired. Su Yin laughed. Huai Yu thought for a moment, then nodded in agreement. Maybe that's the case. Su Yin, I plan to head to Beizhou City in 3 days to inspect the situation there. Although father has handed over all the matters of Beizhou City to Butler Mu, I still have to inspect the market there to analyze the market in Beiyang. Su Yin, are you willing to go with me? Didn't you say you were going to enter Beiyang? We can go together. Hearing that, Su Yin nodded his head. All right, I'm almost done here. It's a good time to go to Beiyang. All right, we'll set off in 3 days. You should make some preparations. After Huai Yu finished speaking, she also left. The training field regained its tranquility. Looking at Huai Yu's departing figure, Su Yun's heart was filled with gratitude. On this trip to the ultimate martial world, if not for Huai Yu's repeated help, he would have died a long time ago. In the Nangong family, she had helped him many times, otherwise, it would have been impossible for Nangong Qing to protect him. Although Huai Yu was the one who saved her, she was only doing it to repay her kindness. However, if she wanted to repay her kindness, what she had done was already enough. Your new lover sure knows how to protect you. Just as Su Yun was thinking, a cold snort suddenly sounded in his ears. Su Yun was startled. He turned his head to look, only to see that Ling Qingyu had unknowingly stood beside him. Qingyu, why did you come out? Su Yun laughed. I finished cultivating, so I wanted to see your current situation. I didn't expect you to be so happy recently. With such a beauty accompanying you. You must be very happy, right? Ling Qingyu snorted. She was someone who had accompanied Su Yun all the way here, so she was very clear on how many women Su Yun had come into contact with. Thus, when she saw Huai Yu talking to Su Yun, Ling Qingyu naturally unintentionally looked in that direction. Su Yun was truly helpless and embarrassed. He explained his relationship with Huai Yu to Ling Qingyu, but she did not believe him at all. With no other choice, Su Yun could only change the topic and said, Qingyu, how's your cultivation recently? Not bad. Ling Qingyu casually replied, then said, your strength has increased by a lot recently. Your cultivation is sufficient, and you can take a sword. If you have this sword, it should be of help to your trip to Beiyang. How about it? Do you plan to take it? Take a sword? Su Yun was startled. Although his cultivation had increased explosively recently, he had not cultivated the limitless sword arts. However, if he had more swords to help him, it would indeed be beneficial for his trip to Beiyang. Chapter 472. Inside the Sword Sheath's world, Su Yun and Ling Qingyu flew quickly in the boundless sky. On the roadside, they could see many majestic sword palaces. Every sword palace was surrounded by densely packed sub-swords. It was a spectacular sight. Although there were many divine swords around, Su Yun was not in a hurry to conquer them. His limitless sword arts training was limited, and it would be difficult to control the swords that he conquered, so he could only take the ones that were useful to him. The higher levels of the limitless sword arts do not require the help of the swords in the sword sheath to kill the enemy. When you reach the middle 2 swords, you can extract the spirits of all living things in the world and use them to form swords. A flower, a grass, a wood, a tree can all be used as a sword, and the absolute sword does not require a real sword. At that realm, you can casually touch it, and it will be a sword. So, the swords in the sword sheath were prepared by the sword ancestor for you to train in the lower four swords. Ling Qingyu said. What? Su Yun was startled, then said, but there are 108,000 swords in the sword sheath. Why do you need so many swords to train in the lower four swords? Ling Qingyu hesitated for a moment, then shook her head. I don't know either. Come to think of it, in those years, the sword ancestor ran around everywhere, collecting all the famous swords, from the sky martial realm to the spirit demon realm, evil realm, devil realm, ghost realm. I'm afraid there are traces of him in the ultimate martial world. Why did he collect all these swords? Is it just for the person who obtained the sword sheath to use? Hearing that, Su Yun lowered his head and thought for a moment, then shook his head. If I have the chance to see the sword ancestor, then I will know everything. We don't even know if the sword ancestor is dead or alive. To talk about meeting him, isn't that just wishful thinking? Ling Qingyu said. Su Yun did not make a sound. Now that the sword elder was rebuilding the limitless sword sect, if the sword ancestor was still alive, maybe he would return to the sword sect to take a look, but after so many years, there was no news of the sword ancestor. Maybe he was really gone. We're here. Just then, Ling Qingyu called out softly. Su Yun was startled, only to see a small sun appearing in the distance, and a wave of heat rushing over. Su Yun activated his heavenly scale divine eye and looked into the distance. Far away, 100 swords landed. Below the swords was a fiery red iron mountain. The 100 swords stabbed into the iron mountain, and the entire iron mountain and the swords emitted raging flames, like a small sun. At the peak of the iron volcano, there was a long sword that was covered in snow-white flames. This sword was especially eye-catching in the red volcano. What sword is that? Su Yun was startled for a moment and asked. Divine sword, tribulation, fire. Ling Qingyu said. Tribulation, fire? Su Yun stared at the white lotus-like divine sword, a trace of passion flashing past his eyes. You know the rules of the sword sheath world. If you want to conquer a sword, you have to rely on yourself. I can't help you at all. Otherwise, the sword will not acknowledge you. Ling Qingyu stopped and said to Su Yun, the rest is up to you. Su Yun nodded, without saying a word. He activated the sword art and waved his hand, causing the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword and the desolator to fly over from afar and hover beside Su Yun. Su Yun took a deep breath and stared at the distant tribulation fire divine sword that was like a blazing sun. With a wave of his hand, he sent the thousands of swords behind him flying over. No matter what he did, he would always make preparations. He did not know anything about the tribulation fire, so if he rashly went forward and made enemies with it, he would only suffer a loss. Using the flying swords to test its strength was the most important thing to do. Thousands of flying swords flew over in unison, covering the sky and covering the sun. It was a spectacular sight. They gathered in the air to form a roaring sword dragon, pointing straight at the tribulation fire, like an arrow shot by Ho-E towards the blazing sun. The long whistle and the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword were both primal swords, and were of the same grade as the tribulation fire. When the two primal swords attacked, they naturally posed a great threat to the tribulation fire. Now that his cultivation had risen and he had two primal swords in his hands, it shouldn't be too difficult for him to obtain the tribulation fire. Crash! Just as the 1,000 swords approached the tribulation fire, waves of strange sounds erupted from the huge fiery red iron mountain. Immediately after, a deathly white flame rose up around the iron mountain. It was like a cover surrounding the entire iron mountain. When 1,000 swords stabbed towards the flames extended out a large number of thick palms, directly grabbing the incoming swords. What? Su Yun was shocked. However, thousands of flaming hands appeared around the iron mountain, tightly gripping the swords, preventing them from advancing any further. The might of the long whistle and the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword was astonishing. These flaming hands were unable to restrain them. The two swords broke free from the flames and continued to charge forward. They pierced through the wall of flames like a hot knife through butter, directly smashing towards the tribulation fire sword at the top of the Iron Mountain. But just as the two swords approached, the tribulation fire divine sword finally moved. With a clang sound, a snow-white light appeared, and the tribulation fire sword flew into the air. The sword's body began to spin rapidly, and a large amount of flames on the Iron Mountain began to pour into it. In a short while, the entire tribulation fire divine sword's body was wrapped in a circle of scorching white flames, as if it had formed a new sun. Clang, 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 clang. The 100 subordinate swords on the Iron Mountain also flew out at this moment. They quickly circled around the Iron Mountain, and the faster they spun, the higher the temperature of the Iron Mountain became. Su Yun frowned. He did not dare to hesitate. He controlled the long whistle and the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword to fiercely attack the tribulation fire. However, the tribulation fire seemed to have been prepared. When the two swords attacked, violent explosions sounded around its body. Countless waves of air blew in all directions, preventing the two swords from attacking. Even Su Yun, who was extremely far away from the tribulation fire, could feel the power of this wave of air. The surroundings of the tribulation fire exploded crazily, and the waves of air never stopped. When the two swords were 100 meters away from the tribulation fire, their speed slowed down. It was extremely difficult for them to advance any further. Seeing that, Su Yun immediately increased the supply of profound qi to the two swords. The two swords trembled as they advanced forward. It was difficult for them to move forward, but they slowly approached. Su Yun, this is consumption. Can't you tell? Ling Qingyu frowned, turned her head, and said, How can I not see it? Su Yun said solemnly, The tribulation fire is using its magic to consume the impact of these two swords, and after it is exhausted, it will launch an attack. This sword is very intelligent. It knows what its current advantages and disadvantages are, and it wants to rely on its own advantages to determine the victor. Ling Qingyu was startled and said, You saw its advantage? Su Yun nodded. Ling Qingyu was immediately shocked. How is this possible? You have just come into contact with this sword. How can you see the advantage of this sword? Su Yun did not explain, and he did not have the time to explain. In fact, from a moment the tribulation fire released a wave of air that forced the two swords to be unable to move forward. He could tell that this sword was very powerful. It must be a divine sword that relied on an explosive attack to win. If that was the case, then as long as he could withstand its explosive attack and counterattack while it was weak, he would definitely be able to take down this sword. However, what kind of attack would it use to determine the victor? And did he have the ability to retaliate? Su Yun became vigilant as he stared at the deathly white sun that was floating above the Iron Mountain. The waves of air were still bombarding the immortal profound sword, and the two swords were shaking even more violently. Su Yun also felt that the profound qi in his body was crazily flowing away, and no matter how much profound energy he injected into the two swords, they were still struggling. No, if this continued, he would definitely lose. If it was used up, then everything would be for naught. He gritted his teeth and suddenly made up his mind. With a leap, he pushed his speed to the limit and charged straight towards the two swords. Su Yun, what are you doing? Come back quickly. You can't handle the temperature. Ling Qingyu panicked and shouted with all her might. But Su Yun was like a wild horse that had escaped its reins and could not be pulled back. He approached the tribulation fire like a meteor, and the temperature soared as he got closer. At first, it was only a heat wave that burned his face, but as he got closer, the heat wave began to turn into a knife that cut his skin. In the end, it was no longer a heat wave, but a flame that began to devour his body. This temperature was almost heaven-defying. Su Yun did not dare to imagine it. At this moment, he no longer hesitated and took out the 7th-tier Imperial equipment and activated it. A barrier of air wrapped around him, isolating him from the surrounding heat waves, and he also bumped into the two swords. The two swords stopped moving forward, and at that moment, Su Yun focused all of his profound qi on the 7th-tier Imperial equipment. Just as Su Yun and the two swords met, the tribulation fire moved. The flames on its surface quickly squirmed, as if they were alive. Some places extended infinitely, some places began to cave in, some places began to split, and some places gradually fused. The deathly white sword inside rotated rapidly, and as it rotated, the divine sword gradually rose into the air. The flames began to spiral, and finally, a huge flaming body appeared. The sky was dyed blood red by the flames, and the scorching temperature seemed to want to burn the entire world. This scene was like the end of the world. Seeing that, Su Yun's heart tightened and immediately poured all of the profound energy in his body into the 7th-tier Imperial equipment in his hand. The chi barrier became even thicker. The blade of the Tribulation Fire Sword gradually rose up, and the flame giant immediately raised both of its hands, forming a huge flame sword between its hands. The scorching temperature seemed to want to penetrate the Imperial equipment's chi barrier and blow into Su Yun's body. Even Ling Qingyu, who was far away, felt her heart skip a beat when she saw such a magnificent attack. "It's coming," Su Yun growled, his eyes staring straight at the gigantic flame sword. The Tribulation Fire Sword in the flames slowed down for a second, and then quickly swung down. Crash! It was as if the entire world of the sword sheath was in turmoil. The giant's huge hands held onto the flame sword and fiercely slashed at the chi barrier. No one could compare to the imposing aura that could swallow mountains and rivers. The blade of the sword was scorching hot, and its power was boundless. It fiercely slashed at the chi barrier with an earth-shattering momentum. Dong! In that instant, Su Yun's arm, which was holding onto the 7th-tier Imperial equipment flag, trembled violently. The profound chi in his body was in turmoil, and it was difficult to calm down. This attack was the strongest attack he had ever faced. Even the Desolator's sword and the immortal mystical Scarlet Blood Sword could not be compared to this attack. Chapter 473. The flaming sword slashed down, and a large amount of flames erupted from the sword, completely devouring the chi cover. The ferocious flames were like the bloody mouth of a wild beast, engulfing Su Yun. Su Yun, who was behind the 7th-tier Imperial equipment, clenched his teeth and stared at everything in front of him. The 7th-tier Imperial equipment was trembling slightly, and the 7th-tier Imperial equipment that could withstand any attack in the past had actually become strenuous at this moment. Any of the swords in the sword sheath would maintain their original power before they were subdued by Su Yun, and as a mother sword, their own power was many times stronger than the subordinate swords until they were controlled by Su Yun. Rather than saying that it was a restriction, it would be more accurate to say that Su Yun's current strength was unable to unleash its full power. The Death Sword was a very good example. Su Yun believed that even the current him would not be able to contend against the Death Sword's full power. The Divine Sword Tribulation Fire's attack clearly showed that its explosive and destructive power far surpassed that of the Desolator and the Immortal Profound. However, although it was difficult for the 7th-tier Imperial equipment, it was still an Imperial equipment. It was a powerful divine object that surpassed all the magic treasures of the Sky Martial Continent. Su Yun deduced that the grade of this Imperial equipment could even be compared to a divine rank magic treasure, or even stronger. The light barrier continued to tremble, but in the end, it still stopped. Su Yun channeled all of the profound energy in his body into the Imperial equipment, and the originally weak chi cover suddenly became thicker. The flames overflowed with a large amount of flames that were like steel wires. They wrapped around the entire chi cover and then pulled crazily, intending to tear the chi cover apart. However, the defense of the chi cover was simply too astonishing. As a purely defensive Imperial equipment, the attacks it could block were beyond the imagination of ordinary spirit cultivator S, adding on to Su Yun's hysterical urging of the profound chi. In the end, the Tribulation Fire's attack failed. The flames gradually weakened and finally returned to the Tribulation Fire's sword body. The sword in the giant's hand dissipated, and it slowly retreated. Under the control of the Tribulation Fire, it moved back step by step as if it was planning to temporarily avoid the attack. Now is the time. A sinister look flashed past Su Yun's eyes. He suddenly removed the imperial equipment and held the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword and the desolator in front of him tightly. Roar! As if it had been provoked by Su Yun, the tribulation fire sword that had just stopped started to spin crazily again. The giant let out a heaven-shaking roar. Its two hands formed fists and fiercely punched toward Su Yun. Its aura was extremely fierce. This was Su Yun's only chance. Although the 7th-tier Imperial equipment was strong, it was definitely unable to withstand the second attack of the Tribulation Fire. He roared and pushed his speed to the limit. His gaze was fixed on the divine sword Tribulation Fire on the giant's chest. He struck out with both swords and stabbed forward without a care for his own safety. When he entered the giant's chest, the fanatical flames started to burn his skin. The profound qi in his body anxiously resisted, but Su Yun did not leave too much profound energy for himself. Previously, when he used the Imperial equipment to block the attack, he had already used up more than half of the profound energy, and there was not much energy left in his body. He was betting everything on one throw, and focused most of his energy on the two swords. The twin swords were like dragons, attacking from the left and right, the surging flames blossoming at the tip of the swords like flowers. Even if the divine sword Tribulation Fire had intelligence, it was hard to imagine that Su Yun would be so fierce. Even Ling Qingyu, who was in the distance, was dumbstruck as she stared at Su Yun. This kid, does he not want to live anymore? Ling Qingyu said in shock. The sword's momentum was like a rainbow as it pierced forward. The divine sword Tribulation Fire no longer had the strength to defend, but it heard clang. A burst of sparks exploded, and a huge ripple spread out. The incomparably large giant was like broken glass, quickly disintegrating, dispersing, and finally disappearing. The divine sword Tribulation Fire was knocked away, and Su Yun immediately let go of the two swords in his hands, tightly grabbing onto the hilt of the Tribulation Fire with both hands. When his hand touched the hilt of the sword, the scorching temperature immediately spread. At that moment, Su Yun felt that he was not grabbing onto the hilt of the sword, but a piece of red-hot iron. White smoke leaked out from his palm, and the skin and flesh there began to burn and melt. Su Yun seemed to feel that his bones had touched the hilt of the sword, and the intense pain made him want to let go countless times. But if he let go, everything would be in vain. He gritted his teeth, sweat overflowing, but it was evaporated by the high temperature. His eyes were red, and he was extremely stubborn. The Tribulation Fire started to tremble, and the sword's body shot out flames, wanting to force Su Yun to retreat, but Su Yun still did not give up. He grabbed onto the Tribulation Fire and crazily pulled it back, like a madman who had lost his mind. The thousands of flying swords immediately flew over and revolved around the Tribulation Fire. The terrifying sword intent was like a wave as it struck the Tribulation Fire. Finally, this continued for the time it took for an incense stick to burn before the restless sword body of the Tribulation Fire slowly cooled down. The arrogant were afraid of the reckless, and the reckless were afraid of the reckless. For someone like Su Yun, he was someone who did not care about his life at all. Ling Qingyu no longer knew what to say about Su Yun. He belonged to the category of people who did not care about their lives at all. Gradually, the Tribulation Fire, which had been seized by Su Yun, found it difficult to accumulate energy. Once it accumulated energy, Su Yun would crazily shake the sword's body, causing the energy in its body to become chaotic, and Su Yun's was slowly sensed by the Tribulation Fire. Could it be that this extraordinary will was still unable to subdue this sword? After an unknown period of time, the surrounding temperature began to drop, gradually returning to normal temperature. The Tribulation Fire stopped moving and was deathly still as it was held in Su Yun's hand. The flames of Iron Mountain were still burning, but the temperature was no longer high. Su Yun tried his best to raise his eyelids and look at the deathly white sword in his hand. Finally, he revealed a bitter smile. Then his neck tilted and he fainted. Su Yun. Ling Qingyu immediately flew over and hugged Su Yun. She looked around and flew out of the sword sheath with him in her arms. After about an hour, Su Yun slowly opened his eyes. Looking around, he was already in the Huairou family's training field, and Ling Qingyu was standing beside him. "Are you all right, Su Yun?" Seeing that Su Yun had woken up, Ling Qingyu immediately squatted down and asked gently. "I'm fine," Su Yun said weakly. He was about to get up, but just as his hands touched the ground, a heart-wrenching pain came from his palms. He sucked in a breath of cold air and quickly lay down. He raised his hands and saw that they were almost burnt through, leaving only a thin layer of mucus wrapped around the bones. It was extremely terrifying. "You idiot, you actually used your hands to forcefully take the tribulation fire. Fortunately, your willpower subdued the tribulation fire. Otherwise, your hands would have been crippled." Ling Qingyu snorted and said with some blame, "I really can't think of any better way." Su Yun laughed awkwardly and said, "Furthermore, even if my hands are melted, with my current cultivation, wouldn't it be easy for me to recover?" Hearing that, Ling Qingyu was startled for a moment, then bit her lower lip and said, "Actually, Su Yun, just now after you obtained the tribulation fire, I took a look and tested the attributes of the tribulation fire. Maybe it's even stronger than I imagined." "Even stronger?" Su Yun was slightly startled. "What do you mean?" "It also contains another very terrifying power. When I was examining your wound, I noticed this power. Fortunately, the power on your wound is not strong, and it should be able to disappear after a period of time. It's probably because the tribulation fire did not deliberately use this power. If it had deliberately used it, I'm afraid that your hands, it would have been impossible for them to recover. Other than cutting them off, there's no other way." "What?" Hearing that, Su Yun's face was filled with shock. "What kind of power is this?" "Unhealable spirit energy." "Unhealable spirit energy? Could it be?" "Yes. Once you use the power of the tribulation fire, when you fight with others, once you leave a wound on their body, the wound will not be able to heal. If you cut off someone's hands and feet, no matter how high their cultivation is, they will not be able to recover. And what's even more terrifying is that once you use this sword to kill any living being, this living being's soul will also be devoured by the divine fire on this sword, unable to be revived. This is a sword of the god of death." Saying that, Ling Qingyu took a deep breath and said, "So, you were really lucky to go and obtain the tribulation fire so recklessly. If it wanted to kill you, I'm afraid no one would be able to revive you." Hearing that, Su Yun broke out in cold sweat, and his heart was filled with lingering fear. He never thought that this sword would be so terrifying. Su Yun raised his hands and looked at the wound on his head. He took a deep breath and quickly took out a few pills from his ring and swallowed them one by one. When the pill entered his stomach, it began to take effect. The medicinal effect nourished the injured parts of his body. But what was surprising was that the recovery speed of these wounds was extremely slow. He urged the profound strength again and used the monarch occult force to transform it into spirit life, qi, to nourish his wounds. But the effect was still poor. Ugh! Su Yun suddenly felt a sweetness in his throat. He spat out a mouthful of blood and then started to cough violently. "Quickly stop. Su Yun, you have already fainted from exhaustion of profound strength, and now you are still urging profound strength. Do you not want to live?" Ling Qingyu hurriedly said. Su Yun stopped, but when he looked at the wound on his palm, his eyebrows knitted together. Seeing that, Ling Qingyu said, "You don't have to worry. The power attached to it is very thin. When the tribulation fire was fighting with you, it did not use its power. It was only staying a little. I believe it will heal in 10 days to half a month." 10 days to half a month, huh? I hope I can get better soon. Su Yun sighed and walked out of the training grounds. He asked the servant outside to bring 2 white cloths and wrap them around his hands. After that, he sat down cross-legged and took out the deathly white sword from the sword sheath. A sword that can directly destroy a person's soul. Just based on this alone, this sword is already a supreme weapon. Su Yun sighed. He pinched the tribulation fire and carefully examined it. The sword's blade was translucent white. The sword hilt was scarlet red. There were a few protruding tendons, and in the center of the sword hilt was a fiery red gem. There seemed to be a ball of flame burning inside the gem. It was very beautiful. The power of this sword might be far more than this. Only when you are completely familiar with this sword and have a thorough communication with its spirit will you be able to unleash its full power. Ling Qingyu stood in front of Su Yun and said seriously, "The reason why I let you take this sword is actually because I want to impart a new sword formation to you. With the help of this sword, the might of the sword formation will multiply." Hearing that, Su Yun asked anxiously, "What sword formation is it?" Burning Heavens Sword Formation. Chapter 474. Burning Heavens. Just the name alone was powerful. Maybe this sword formation would be even stronger than the Seven Ascension and Cold Frost. This is also a high-grade sword formation, but its power is much stronger than the Seven Ascension Slaughter Formation. There are many classifications of sword formations, but I can roughly divide them into beginner, middle, and high grade. Actually, regardless of whether it is a beginner or a high-grade sword formation, there is not much of a difference. It mainly depends on the user's familiarity with the formation. If you are strong enough, even a beginner-grade sword formation will be able to unleash the power of a high-grade sword formation. Conversely, if you do not have a thorough understanding of the sword formation, even a high-grade sword formation will not be stronger than a beginner-grade sword formation. With that, Ling Qingyu took down 9 swords from the weapon rack at the side of the training grounds. All of them were Yang-grade swords, although they were treasures in the Sky Martial Continent. But here, they were extremely ordinary weapons. Ling Qingyu instigated her profound spirit qi, causing all of the swords to ignite into flames. She knew so many sword formations. Most likely her profound spirit qi had trained quite a bit. Su Yun looked at the blazing swords and secretly thought. Ling Qingyu's slender fingers gently pinched, her index finger and ring finger slightly curled up, and then quickly changed. The other fingers moved quickly. The frequency was very fast, but it was very stiff, and her cherry lips came out one after another incantations. The spirit dance in the heavens. The heavens do not come. There is no Buddha. There is no Buddha. There is no lotus. The lotus wants to burn. Burning must kill the heavens. The anger of the heavens is no match for my Buddha's lotus fire. The flames of the burning heavens, the enemy of the human heart's 5 viscera and 6 bowels, the 3 souls and 7 spirits, the 4 chi and 9 meridians, the 2 underworld and the 8 essences, 1 death, 10 death, while chanting the 9 swords, started to tremble. And what made people gasp in surprise was that the flames on the 9 swords started to become restless. The flames on the surface gradually condensed onto the sword body. The flames gathered in one place. The surrounding flames became much thinner, causing the flames in the center to be extremely conspicuous. They twisted and turned, forming lines and lines of runes and seals. These runes continued to flicker. The 9 swords with this so sound soared into the sky and revolved around Ling Qingyu, the sharp swords revolving at high speeds, releasing the flames, causing Ling Qingyu to look like a beautiful fire lotus. Su Yun was startled, until the gradually rising temperature woke him up. He immediately retreated to avoid being burned by the scorching temperature. The 9 swords spun faster and faster, and the more they spun, the stronger the flames became, as though they were about to form a flaming tornado. The enchantment of the fighting grounds immediately sensed Ling Qingyu's profound qi, and the fighting grounds enchantment immediately activated. A layer of blue light rose up, and the flames struck the light screen, burning it continuously. As a business family, the Huairou family used high-quality goods. However, after the light screen was hit by the firestorm, it emitted a large amount of white smoke. The surface began to thin, as if it was going to melt at any time. Su Yun was in a daze. This temperature was probably not inferior to the flames of the Iron Mountain where the Tribulation Fire Sword was located. Suddenly, among the 9 swords that were revolving around Ling Qingyu, a gigantic phoenix suddenly appeared. Su Yun looked carefully. The phoenix was actually formed from sharp sword. It directly flew out, fiercely smashing into the light screen. It was unknown what grade of light screen it was, but it was instantly broken like a piece of paper, fiercely flying towards the entrance of the martial field. Seeing that, Su Yun's face immediately became anxious and immediately shouted, "Qing you that? Quick! Quick! Stop!" But it was too late, bang. A violent explosion rang out. Dust flew everywhere, and the entire martial field trembled a few times. After a while, Su Yun looked again, only to see that the entrance of the martial field was already shattered, and the ground was filled with broken enchantment fragments and scattered martial field equipment. The scene was a mess. Ling Qingyu was startled and immediately removed the burning heaven sword formation. Su Yun, on the other hand, stared blankly at this scene. Cough, cough. About that, this place is too small. It's not easy to use the burning heaven sword formation. I'll teach you another day. After Ling Qingyu finished speaking, she immediately leaped up, transforming into a white light and entering the sword sheath. "Qingyu," Su Yun shouted again, but it was too late. Voila! At this time, a large number of footsteps floated over from outside the martial field. Su Yun opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say. Not long later, the Huairou family's guards, servants, housekeepers, and so on all rushed over. When everyone saw the scene, they were all shocked. All of them looked at Su Yun with astonishment, surprise, and unfriendly expressions. "Young Master Su, what's going on? Are you going to tear down our Huairou manor?" Butler Mu walked out of the crowd, glanced at the ground, and spoke to Su Yun. This was an old man with a white beard that went past his neck. He looked very big, and his forehead was full of wrinkles. His skin was like a withered tree, and there was a large mole at the corner of his mouth. He looked quite dignified, but this mole added a sense of humor to his dignified appearance. About that, haha, I couldn't control myself when I was training, and the result was like this. It was an accident, purely an accident. Su Yun hurriedly laughed. Fortunately, these people knew that he was a guest invited by Huairou Muyu. Otherwise, if they caused such a ruckus, even if they didn't die, they would at least lose a layer of skin. This martial field has been built for almost 40 years, and this has never happened before. I didn't expect that you, young Master Su, would make a mess of it today. We have to renovate it. Butler Mu shook his head. He did not dare to blame Su Yun, and said to the servants beside him, "Do it. Quickly take care of it. The martial field needs to be used every day. If Master wants to use the martial field, then it will be terrible. Try to restore it to its original state as soon as possible." "Yes, Butler Mu." As the people shouted, they began to clean up the place. There are 5 enchantments set up in this martial field. Normally speaking, it would be very difficult for ordinary profound skills to break through. Su Yun, what technique were you cultivating just now? How could you create such a terrifying scene here? Just at this moment, a gasp of surprise sounded from behind the crowd. Everyone looked over, only to see Huairou Muyu walking over. "Ah, it's Miss. Greetings, Miss. Greetings, Miss. Greetings, Miss." The servants and guards all bowed to Huairou Muyu. Butler Mu didn't dare to act rashly. He quickly cupped his fists and lowered his head. "Greetings, Mississippi Ann." Huairou Muyu nodded, indicating for everyone to continue working, then said to Su Yun, "Su Yun, you haven't answered my question yet." "Answer what? How did you cause such a phenomenon?" Huairou Muyu asked softly. "Do you know who set up these 5 enchantments? These 5 enchantments are difficult to break even for a 10th grade Spirit Master cultivator, but you broke them, and even broke all 5 of them at the same time. Su Yun, what profound skill are you cultivating? Is it convenient to reveal it?" This. Su Yun hesitated for a moment, took a deep breath, and shook his head. "It's just a sword formation, but I haven't mastered it." "Oh." Seeing that Su Yun didn't say it directly, Huairou Muyu knew that she had asked too much. Suddenly, from the corner of her eye, she saw that Su Yun's hands were wrapped in cloth and immediately asked, "What happened to your hands?" "It's hard to heal from injuries caused by cultivation, so I'll use this to deal with it for now. There's still a wound that can't be healed by a spirit master." Huairou Muyu frowned. "It's just that it's healing a little slower." Su Yun laughed. Huayro Muyu thought for a moment and did not continue to question him. Instead, she changed the topic and said, Su Yun, how are your preparations? We're leaving in the afternoon. Leaving in the afternoon? So fast. Didn't I tell you this time before? The time has come. If we don't leave, when will we? But Su Yun hesitated for a moment, secretly glanced at Butler Mu, and then asked softly, Didn't you say Butler Mu should be in Beizhou City? Why is he still here? He'll go out later and arrive at Beizhou City before us. His people are already operating in Beizhou City, Huayro Muyu said. Hearing that, Su Yun nodded. All right, I'll get someone to inform you to set off later. Huayro Muyu turned around and left. Su Yun didn't have anything to prepare. His belongings were all in the storage ring on his finger. Although the people in the ultimate martial world liked to hang a space bag on their body, he liked to wear a ring more. As expected, after Butler Mu finished dealing with the matters of the martial field, he immediately set off and left Wuyi City. Afternoon, a luxurious carriage stopped outside the Huayro mansion. 2 rows of powerful guards stood on both sides of the carriage, and 2 maids knelt on both sides of the carriage, waiting quietly. This was quite a scene. Su Yun looked at the carriage and thought to himself. Not long after, Huayro Muyu walked out of the Huayro mansion with Xiao Yin. However, there was another person who followed her. It was Huayro Muyu's sworn brother, Yi Maxian. When Su Yun saw Yi Maxian also saw Su Yun. Seeing Su Yun standing beside the carriage, Yi Maxian frowned and asked, My sister, what's wrong? Is this person coming with us? If young master Su wants to go to Beiyang, he must pass through Beizhou City. He will go with us so that we can take care of each other. Why? Doesn't Big Brother want this person to go with us? Huayro Muyu said softly. Of course not. Since he's my sister's friend. So what if he comes with us? Yi Maxian smiled stiffly and said to Xiao Yin. Xiao Yin quickly helped Miss into the carriage. Yes, young master. Xiao Yin bowed and carefully helped Huayro Muyu onto the carriage. Yi Maxian's servant brought over a snow-white horse. This horse had 4 wings and had an extraordinary charm. It must be a divine object. Yi Maxian got on the horse and sat up straight. He was handsome and attracted the attention of women. Su Yun glanced at him and didn't say anything. He saw Xiao Yin bring over another black horse. This horse only had 2 wings and was much wider than the white horse. However, it was shorter and looked like a fat horse. Su Yun didn't say anything and directly got on the horse. However, he didn't expect that as soon as he got on the horse, a burst of laughter came from the other side. Su Yun looked over and saw Yi Maxian laughing nonstop. Seeing Su Yun looking at him, Yi Maxian cupped his fists and looked at the horse. Young Master Su, this horse is quite suitable for you, haha. Everyone could see this horse's ugliness. After all, it was dark, short, and fat. Yi Maxian's words were clearly mocking Su Yun. However, as soon as he finished speaking, the black horse let out a roar that sounded like a lion. The surrounding mounts were all shocked. Even the 2 heavenly horses that were pulling Huayro Muyu became restless. Yi Maxian hurriedly pulled the reins, wanting to control the mount under his crotch. However, the mount was restless and couldn't calm down at all. Su Yun was stunned. He looked at the mount under his crotch and found that the horse's eyes were blood red. Young Master Yi, you have to be patient. This horse is a winged black blood horse from the demon realm. It's very human-like. It can cultivate for another 800 years and become a spirit. Your words just now might have angered it. Xiao Yin covered her lips and laughed. Yi Maxian was stunned. This was a demonic horse. A trace of awkwardness appeared on his face. He wanted to flare up, but there was nowhere to do it. He could only let out a muffled snort and no longer make sound. Let's go. At this moment, Huayro Muyu, who was in the carriage, said something that broke the strange atmosphere. No one said anything. The convoy slowly moved forward and flew into the air. Chapter 475. Su Yun naturally wouldn't provoke Yi Maxian. After all, the 2 of them didn't have a good impression of each other, so he wouldn't ask for trouble. At this time, it wasn't convenient for him to talk to Huayro Muyu, so he obediently sat on the devil horse and closed his eyes to rest. In his mind, he recalled the burning heaven sword formation that Ling Qingyu had demonstrated in the training field. Ling Qingyu hadn't completed the entire sword formation, but its power was already astonishing and heaven-defying. The previous 8-part sword formation was a trapping formation, using the number of swords in attack and defense to restrain the opponent. This was a typical sword formation for the weak to defeat the strong. The Cold Frost sword formation also belonged to the category of attack and defense, but it was a typical example of turning defense into offense and retreating to advance. The 7 Ascension killing formation was different. This was a fundamental suppressive sword formation. In the inescapable net formed by the 7 swords, it would completely strangle the opponent. And the feeling this burning heaven sword formation gave Su Yun was very different from the previous 3 sword formations. This sword formation was completely created for destruction. It was a sword formation that was created to completely crush the opponent and destroy the opponent without a care for anything else. Just one attack from Ling Qingyu was enough to make Su Yun's scalp go numb. If the full power of the burning heaven sword formation was displayed, who knew how terrifying it would be? Forget it. I don't want to think about it now. Why get to Beiyang? I'll find a chance to learn from Qingyu. Su Yun thought, his heart itching. Suddenly, the smell of blood wafted over. The guards at the front of the convoy immediately noticed the smell and hurriedly raised their hands, signaling for the carriage to stop. Then, the guards immediately surrounded the carriage and looked around vigilantly. What happened? Huairou Muyu's voice came from within the carriage. Reporting to Miss, there's a sudden smell of blood. Maybe there's trouble ahead. A guard walked to the side of the carriage and cupped his fists as he spoke. Send 2 people over to take a look. Yes, sir. The guards responded. Then, 2 of them flew down in the direction of the smell of blood. Below them was a winding country road. There was a small village about 10 miles away, but the people in the village were safe and sound. The ones who were in trouble were the people on this road. Su Yun heard the commotion and immediately looked over. However, everyone was currently high up in the sky, so they couldn't sense the scene below. After about the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, the 2 guards returned. Is there anything wrong? Yi Ma Xian, who was riding the white horse, immediately asked. Reporting to young master, young miss, there's a caravan below, but they are currently resting by the roadside. Most of the people in the caravan are injured, so we didn't dare to approach them. We just observed them from afar. From the looks of it, they seem to have just experienced a fierce battle. I think it's better for us to pass through quickly, another guard said. But before Huairou Muyu could speak, Yi Mo Xian spoke. He made a thoughtful expression and continued. Caravan? Is there a flag on the car? If there's a flag, can you see what's written on it? Do you know what the people in this convoy are wearing? The flag hanging on the carriage has a big Gu character. As for who they are, this subordinate does not know. However, they are all wearing the same uniform, plain yellow robes with black edges, the guard said. Hearing this, Yi Mo Xian was stunned for a moment. Ancient? A plain yellow shirt with black trim? My sister, isn't this the attire of the Gu family? Could it be that the carriages below belong to the Gu family? Gu family? Inside the carriage, Huairou Muyu was silent for a moment and said, Is it the Gu family that recently cooperated with our Huairou family to open a pill trading company? Very likely. Yi Mo Xian hurriedly said, If it's the Gu family, we can't just watch them die. My sister, we better go take a look. This pill trading company is very important and will be extremely helpful to the future development of our Huairou family. If something happens to the Gu family, we will definitely be affected. You're right. Huairou Muyu nodded. Since that's the case, let's go take a look. Yi Mo Xian nodded, then waved his hand and shouted, Let's go down first and get closer to the Gu family. Yes. Everyone shouted as they protected the carriage and descended bit by bit, heading towards the rugged country road below. Not long after, the group arrived at the small road. At this moment, there was a group of people sparsely sitting in the middle of the small road. There were soldiers and maids, and every one of them was injured. Most of them were sitting cross-legged with their eyes closed as they healed. In the center of these people was a slightly damaged carriage. The horse that was pulling the carriage was already dead, and behind the carriage was a golden flag that was fluttering in the wind. A huge goo character appeared in everyone's eyes. Who is it? When this group of people approached this place, those who were meditating all stood up and took out their swords and sabers, vigilantly looking at these existences that were approaching them. Yemo Sien rode his horse forward, cupped his fists, and said, "I am Yemo Sien. The person sitting in the carriage behind me is the daughter of Huiro Gong, Miss Huiro Muyu of the Huiro family. May I ask if you are from the Gu family?" Huiro Muyu? Yemo Sien? When the guards heard this, they were stunned. They didn't say anything and hurriedly ran towards the broken carriage at the back. The few of them excitedly said a few words to the frame, and the frame immediately began to shake. Following that, a fat man with a round body rushed out of the frame. The fat man had a mustache and looked to be around 30 years old. There were also a few wounds on his body. He clumsily got off the frame and practically rolled and crawled toward the Huiro family. "Young Master Yi? Is it you?" "Ah, young Master Yi. It's really young Master Yi." Then the person inside must be Miss Huiro. "Miss Huiro, help! Miss Huiro, help!" When the fat man saw this person, he immediately shouted like a pig being slaughtered. Su Yun frowned slightly and carefully sized up the fat man and the Gu family guards behind him. At this time, Xiaoyin gently lifted the curtain of the carriage, and then Huiro Muyu, who was as beautiful as a lotus flower, walked out of the carriage. The fat man looked at Huiro Muyu as if he was looking at a goddess from the 9 heavens. He was completely intoxicated and only came back to his senses after a while. He hurriedly cupped his fists and bent his waist 90 degrees. He shouted, "Miss Huiro, quickly save me." "Who are you?" Huiro Muyu looked at this person and frowned. A melodious voice came out. "I am Gu Gongjin, the 3rd young master of the Gu family, the younger brother of Gu Feng. Miss Huiro might not have seen me before, but I have seen you before. I was also present last time when the Gu family and the Huiro family discussed the matter of the joint venture pill merchant. It's just that Miss Huiro didn't notice me." The fat man hurriedly said, "Is that so?" Huiro Muyu looked at the fat man again and asked, "What happened to you guys? Why do you want me to save you?" "Sai, it's a long story." Fatty Gu Gongjin sighed and said, 5 days ago, I was ordered by the patriarch to escort a treasure from the Gu family to Yongdao City. Unfortunately, the news of the treasure leaked out, causing some wild cultivators to have crooked thoughts. In the past few days, we have been attacked by countless people. It is truly difficult to move forward, and we do not know what to do next. If this goes on, I will definitely be killed by those wild cultivators. Why didn't you quickly ask for help from the Gu family and have them send experts to support you?" Huiro Muyu asked. "I ordered people to quickly return and send a message, but the Gu family is also in a tight spot. Not to mention the fact that the joint venture construction of the pill merchant company requires manpower. Just my big brothers are currently out on business, and there are many experts protecting them. The Gu family does not have any extra manpower to send me." The fat man said with a bitter expression, "Our Gu family is not as full of experts as Miss Huiro's family. I'm afraid we won't be able to protect this treasure. Then how do you want me to help you?" Huiro Muyu asked indifferently. When the fatty heard this, he cupped his fists again and said, "Miss Huiro, I don't need you to go through too much trouble. I just hope that you can borrow 1 or 2 experts to help me escort this item back to the Gu family. This place is too far from Yongdao City. I'm afraid I don't have the ability to protect this treasure to the destination, so I can only temporarily return to the Gu family. Borrow 1 or 2 experts. How can that be?" Almost at the same time the fatty said this, Yemo Sien snorted and said, "If you borrow all the experts, then who will protect my sister? This won't do, it won't do." When the fatty heard this, he was immediately speechless. This, what should we do? Huiro Muyu didn't say anything, so Suyin naturally didn't say anything either. He had been secretly observing everyone's expressions, hoping to see something. When the Gu family is in trouble, we can't just stand by and watch. Not to mention that we are partners. Even if it's a cultivator we have never met, we should still help when it's time. It's just that it's not convenient for us right now. After all, I have a long way to go. Please forgive me young Master Gu. At this time, Huayro Muyu said softly. When Fatty heard this, he was immediately disappointed. With a sad face, he said, "It's over, it's over, it's all over. This time I might die in the wilderness. It's over, it's all over." Woo. As he spoke, the Fatty actually started crying. Su Yin was instantly dumbfounded. Even if this Fatty didn't have the cultivation of Spirit Master, did he at least have the strength of the Spirit Star realm? He could even cry. Yimo Xian glanced at the Fatty and immediately went to Huayro Muyu's side. He said in a low voice, "My sister, this isn't good, right? If we don't do anything, once something happens to Gu Gongjin and the Gu family finds out that we didn't save him, I'm afraid it will affect our cooperation with the Gu family. It's not a good thing for our Huayro family. Big brother, do you have any ideas?" Huayro Muyu asked directly. Yimo Xian rubbed his chin and thought for a while, then said, "How about this? Instead of lending people to him, why don't we bring him along and go to Beizhou City together? Yangdao City is only half a day's journey from Beizhou City. If we safely arrive at Beizhou City, you can lend him half a day's journey and help him go to Yangdao City. Wouldn't that be the best of both worlds?" Hearing this, Huayro Muyu thought for a moment and nodded. "It's the same direction. Since that's the case, let's do it this way." "All right." Yimo Xian smiled and told the Fatty what he meant. When the Fatty heard this, he was immediately grateful and kept bowing to Huayro Muyu. "Gongjin, thank you, Miss Huayro. Thank you, Miss Huayro. There's hope this time." After shouting, she began to cry again. Tears of joy. Seeing this, Su Yin was completely drunk. Chapter 476. Fatty's team mixed in. There were about 40 people in this convoy heading to Beizhou City, but half of them were sick. Fatty and the others were flying behind the convoy. Most of them closed their eyes to recuperate and heal the wounds on their bodies. After Huayro Muyu accepted the Fatty's group, she did not bother with them anymore. She just let the carriage move forward and did not speak to the Fatty at all, because inside the carriage, the Fatty who was following behind could not find a chance to speak to her. Prince Su, just as Su Yin was leisurely resting on the black horse, Xiaoyin suddenly floated over and whispered into Su Yin's ear. Su Yin opened his long and narrow eyes and said, "What's the matter?" "Young Master Su, young lady wants you to get on the carriage." Xiaoyin smiled. "Ah." Su Yin was stunned. He glanced at Yi Ma Xian and then at the Fatty Gu Gongjin. Then he whispered, "Does your young miss think there's no problem? Miss never cares about other people's gossip." Xiaoyin said with a smile, "Not to mention that young Master Su is an upright and good person. She believes that you are a gentleman." Su Yun, since Huayro Muyu is not afraid, why would the thick-skinned Su Yun care? Immediately, he dismounted and stepped into the carriage frame. Under the shocked expressions of Yi Ma Xian and Gu Gongjin, he directly entered the carriage frame. The interior of the carriage was still extremely spacious, with exquisite decorations, but this time, Huayro Muyu was already neatly dressed and sitting in front of the tea table, quietly waiting for Su Yun's arrival. When Su Yun entered, Huayro Muyu picked up the teapot and poured a cup of tea for him. "Su Yun, sit here. It's a long journey. Let's chat." Huayro Muyu said gently. "I thought you could endure the loneliness." Su Yun teased. Huayro Muyu frowned, but did not say anything. Su Yun picked up the teacup. He did not know how to taste tea and directly gulped it down. To him, Huayro Muyu's food was good. At least it was beneficial for his cultivation. Huayro Muyu looked away and pretended not to see it, then said, "Su Yun, what do you think?" Su Yun was startled. "What are you looking at?" "Gu Gongjin. That Fatty? What happened?" "I feel that something is fishy." Huayro Muyu placed her teacup down and said indifferently, "For no reason at all. Why did we bump into him? Moreover, even his people were injured. Isn't this too much of a coincidence? If that's the case, isn't it logical that he's on the same path as me? I hope this is just a coincidence. If it isn't, the situation will be terrible." "Oh, you suspect that Gu Gongjin is not a member of the Gu family, but an assassin pretending to be a member of the Gu family and wants to harm you?" Su Yun laughed. "It's not impossible." Huayro Muyu nodded her head seriously. "Furthermore, he has more people than me, but they're all injured." Have you checked if their injuries are real? This. I did ask my guards to secretly take note of them. Their injuries are indeed real. If that's the case, what are you worried about? I don't think you're going to treat them. You're just letting them drag on like this. They're just a bunch of injured people. Even if they outnumber you, so what? What's more, your people are stronger than every single one of them. Su Yin said. Huairou Muyu was silent. But then again, Muyu, why didn't you tell your big brother about this and instead told me about it? In the end, I'm still an outsider of your Huairou family. Do you really trust me that much? Su Yin asked curiously. Unexpectedly, Huairou Muyu didn't even think about it and said, You've saved me time and time again. If it wasn't for you, how could there be me? If I don't even trust you, who else can I trust? These words made Su Yun feel somewhat embarrassed. He laughed dryly. Seeing that Huairou Muyu was still thinking with her head lowered, her eyebrows furrowed. After thinking for a while, she smiled and said, Muyu, since you're so worried, why don't we interrogate that Gu Gongxian? Huairou Muyu immediately raised her head. Interrogate? How? Call him in. Su Yun said. Call him in? Huairou Muyu thought for a while, then stretched out her jade-like finger and pointed in the air. Suddenly, white halos of light burst out from her fingertips, and then she heard Huairou Muyu say softly, Xiaoyin, help me invite young Master Gu Gongxian into the carriage. Yes, Mississippi, Xiao Yin's voice was transmitted into the carriage. A moment later, the conversation between Xiao Yin and Gu Gongxian could be heard. This carriage frame was also a magic treasure. The inside of the carriage frame could hear the sounds within 100 miles, and the people outside would definitely not be able to hear the sounds of the people inside. After receiving Huairou Muyu's invitation, Fatty Gu Gongxian's face was filled with surprise. However, when he thought about how Su Yun had gone in earlier, his fat face became unhappy again. However, due to Huairou Muyu's identity, he still obediently got on the carriage frame. After entering the carriage, the fatty almost didn't know what was going on. He looked left and right, admiring the interior of the carriage. After a while, his eyes landed on Huairou Muyu, who was still drinking tea in the middle. The moment his eyes landed on her, it was as if they were glued to her, and he couldn't move away at all. But very quickly, Gu Gongxian felt that something was wrong. He tried his best to shift his eyes away and looked left and right, only to find that Su Yun's figure had disappeared. Immediately, he asked suspiciously, Miss Huairou, I clearly saw young Master Su get on this carriage just now. Why is he here? Do you have something to look for him for? Huairou Muyu asked in a tone that was neither light nor heavy. No, no, no. I have nothing to do with him. I have never met him before. Why would I look for him? Gu Gongxian hurriedly waved his hand. That's good. Huairou Muyu nodded. Seeing this, Gu Gongxian smiled and asked, I wonder why Mrs. called me in. However, as soon as she finished speaking, her beautiful little face suddenly became serious, and she said in a low voice, Young Master Gu, although you're traveling with me to Beizhou City, I've never met you before, and everything is just your one-sided story. To be honest, I still don't trust you. After all, anyone can make the Gu family's clothes and flags, so I've called you in this time to give you a chance to prove yourself. If you can prove your identity here, then I'll treat your people's injuries and do my best to help you reach Yangdao City. If you can't prove your identity, then I'm afraid we'll have to part ways. After saying that, Gu Gongxian was stunned for a while. After a while, he reacted and said, So Miss Huairou is suspicious of me. If that's the case, then Miss Huairou, you can rest assured. I am indeed Gu Gongxian, and I am indeed a member of the Gu family. At this point, Gu Gongxian seemed to have thought of something. He hurriedly took out a purple token from the space bag at his waist and placed it on the table. If Miss doesn't believe me, please take a look. This is the Gu family's token. This should be enough to prove my identity, right? Gu Gongxian said. Huairou Muyu looked at it. It was indeed the Gu family's token. Normally, it was impossible for anyone else to obtain this kind of token. If this Gu Gongxian was worthy of suspicion, then the entire Gu family was worthy of suspicion. However, this was too impossible. Seeing this token, half of the suspicion in Huairou Muyu's heart had already disappeared. However, When she thought of the person in the dark, she endured it and retracted her gaze from the token. She said in a low voice, "Forget about the token. This thing is not enough to prove anything. If you want to prove that everything you said is true, it's actually very simple. You only need to show me another thing." Gu Gongxin was startled. "What is it?" "It's a treasure you said you wanted to send to Yongdao City." "Why, Romu," you said in a low voice. Hearing this, Gu Gongxin was completely stunned on the spot. He looked at Huai Ro Muyu in shock, then forced a smile and said, "Miss Huai Ro, are you joking? This is a secret treasure of my Gu family. This time, sending it to Yongdao City is also a secret matter. Other than the master in Yongdao City, no one else can touch it, so I'm just taking a look. I'm not saying that I want to take your treasure." Huai Ro Muyu's brows turned cold as she said solemnly, "Unless you don't have it. If you do, how can you not show it to me? Quickly take it out. I'll give you the time it takes to brew a cup of tea. I hope you can think it through. If you do, no one will know even if you show it to me. What are you worried about?" Gu Gongxin thought for a moment. His fat face was filled with conflict. Huai Ro Muyu continued to drink her tea. She didn't seem to be in a hurry, but Gu Gongxin didn't notice that Huai Ro Muyu was looking at him from the corner of her eyes. Gu Gongxin lowered his head with a hesitant expression. He walked to the east and then to the west, constantly going back and forth, as if he couldn't make up his mind. Finally, he made up his mind. Gu Gongxin nodded his head seriously and said, "Since Miss Huai Ro really wants to see it, all right, Gu Gongxin, will go all out. I will take out this treasure and let you see it. Although this is the first time Miss and I, Gu Gongxin, have met, I can still do this to show my sincerity." With that, Gu Gongxin stretched out his hand and touched the space bag beside him. A trace of surprise flashed through Huai Ro Muyu's eyes. She didn't expect Gu Gongxin to actually make a decision. However, she quickly recovered and put down the teacup. Her crystal-like eyes gently stared at Gu Gongxin's hand. A moment later, he took out an iron box about the size of 2 palms. There were evil spirit patterns on the surface of the box, making it look extremely sinister. On both sides of the box were the carvings of a flood dragon, and a cold aura seeped out from a box. Gu Gongxin held the box with both hands and walked towards the tea table step by step. "Miss Huai Ro, please take a look," Gu Gongxin said with a face full of smiles. Huai Ro Muyu secretly frowned and gently nodded. She stared at the box for a moment before reaching out her hand to open it. Seeing this, Su Yun, who was in the shadows, could no longer hold it in. He directly opened his mouth and shouted in a low voice, "Wait!" Gu Gongxin was stunned. He looked towards the direction of the voice and saw Su Yun walking out from the shadows. It turned out that he had been using the array formation on the carriage to hide. "Young Master Su?" Gu Gongxin was astonished. Su Yun walked over in 3 to 5 steps and took the box. He shouted at Gu Gongxin, "Let me take a look at this item first." With that, he opened it. Chapter 477. Crash. The moment the box was opened, a brilliant light burst out from within. The intense light was so intense that it was difficult to open one's eyes. However, Su Yun was not affected at all, because the moment the box was opened, the 7th tier Imperial equipment had also been activated. A faint layer of chi enveloped his body tightly, making it difficult for even light to penetrate. Su Yun looked into the box, only to see that there were no hidden weapons in the box. There was only a square red crystal. This item is called the True Red Devil Crystal. It is a product from the True Devil Realm. It was obtained by our Gu family's patriarch through a special channel. It is a treasure used to embed on magic treasures. Once it successfully fuses with a magic treasure, its power will seep into the magic treasure, causing the magic treasure to turn into a magic treasure. It will bestow any magic treasure with a magical suction power. And when using the magic treasure to attack other existences, this suction power will automatically activate, extracting a portion of the profound energy from the opponent's body and instilling it into your own body. In other words, with this item, no matter which spirit cultivator it is, they will be able to easily stand in an invincible position in battle. Gu Gongxin said in a low voice. With that said, Huai Ro Muyu and Su Yun were completely shocked. Suction power? and it was even extracting profound energy. What kind of terrifying and miraculous thing was this? If one had this item, it would truly be able to turn the most ordinary magic treasure into a divine object. At this moment, Su Yun's heart was palpitating. No wonder Gu Gongjin had been attacked time and time again. With such a treasure, it would be strange if he wasn't hacked to death by those cultivators. Is indeed a treasure, Huairou Muyu said with emotion. Such a thing would probably become a treasure of her Huairou Merchant Guild. Miss, do you think it's good? Sigh, it's a pity that such a thing has to be given to someone else. Gu Gongjin sighed. Who exactly needs this? Huairou Muyu asked. Gu Gongjin hesitated for a moment, but in the end he still said, actually, he's an extraordinary person. Originally, our Gu family did not plan to sell this treasure and wanted to keep it. When our Gu family has a peerless genius, we will pass it on to that genius and let him bring glory to our Gu family. However, this treasure was leaked out by someone, causing our Gu family to be repeatedly invaded and harassed by thieves. In the end, we attracted that great figure, and after that great figure found out that our Gu family had this item, he immediately asked for profound coins to exchange for it. We were afraid of that great figure's power, so we had no choice but to sell it to that person. Since that's the case, why don't you let that big shot come to the Gu clan to take it himself? Do you need to make a trip? Huairou Muyu asked. It said that the big shot is injured and is recuperating in Yongdao City, so he asked us to send it over. However, even if he is injured, it would be easy for him to destroy our Gu family, Gu Gongjin said. Hearing this, Su Yun suddenly thought of Yi Maxin's family. Wasn't the Yi family destroyed by a big shot? However, the Gu family was lucky this time. In the end, this person still knew how to use profound coins to buy. If he was unwilling and directly attacked, the Gu family would probably end up like the Yi family. An ordinary man is innocent, but a treasure is a crime. In the ultimate martial world, the reason why small characters were always small characters was because they could not withstand too much power. Huairou Muyu looked at Su Yun, who nodded at her. Huairou Muyu turned her head and nodded slightly at Gu Gongjin, saying, I understand. Young Master Gu, I'm very sorry. Please forgive Muyu's previous rude actions. Muyu shouldn't have doubted you. Merchants should be cautious. If Miss Huairou accepts me immediately, I would feel strange. Gu Gongjin waved his hand and said with a smile, the fat on his face trembling nonstop. Young Master Gu, please take a seat. Let me pour some tea for you. Huairou Muyu said, and poured a cup of fragrant tea for Gu Gongjin. Speaking of which, how much did that big shot ask for? At this time, Su Yun took out the blood-red cube from the box and asked after looking at it carefully. This? I don't know yet. The person who is negotiating with that big shot is my father. Gu Gongjin said. Su Yun nodded and put the red cube back. He didn't ask any more questions. After Gu Gongjin finished drinking his tea, he left the carriage. Seeing Gu Gongjin leave, Huairou Muyu heaved a sigh of relief. It seems like he is indeed from the Gu family. There's no need to doubt him. I can't be sure so soon. Su Yun rubbed his chin and thought. It's actually very easy to make up a story. And I don't know if the red cube has the effect he said. After all, we can't insert the stone into the magic treasure to monitor it, so we can't completely trust Gu Gongjin. At the very least, we have to be on guard against him. Don't worry, I'm prepared, Huairou Muyu said softly. Su Yun was stunned. Prepared? What preparation? However, Huairou Muyu shook her head lightly and did not say anything. This woman had learned to keep him in suspense. Su Yun did not ask any further. The group continued to move forward calmly. Other than Gu Gongjin, there were no other twists and turns on the way. Because they were flying, their speed was extremely fast, and it was very difficult to meet anyone in the boundless sky. Only a few rogue cultivators would pass by the convoy, but when they saw that it was the carriage of the Huairou family, most of them would consciously take a detour. After about 13 days of travel, they finally arrived at the Beizhou city, which was located at the gate of the Beiyang. The size of the Beizhou city was slightly smaller than Wuyi City, but it was no less prosperous than Wuyi City. The flowing knight aristocratic family had been operating here for many years without any results. In addition, This place was located on the main road leading to the Beiyang region. There were a lot of spirit cultivators coming and going, and there were countless experts among them. It was not strange for an existence with battle strength of 7,000. After all, the minimum requirement to enter the Beiyang was to have battle strength of 7,000. The existences here were not something that the people of Wuyi City and New Deer City could compare to. Although Huairou Muyu's fighting strength had not reached 7,000, the spirit cultivator in the city still had to give her face. The Huairou family was quite influential even in the Beiyang. Especially after obtaining the Beizhou city, their status had risen even higher. At this moment, outside the gate of the Beizhou city, Huairou Muyu had already ordered her people to land. Although with her identity, she could fly above the Beizhou city, for the sake of the people's hearts, she still chose to enter through the gate. Flying above the heads of spirit cultivators was a disrespectful action, and unless it was a supreme expert, it would cause displeasure. Huairou Muyu walked out of the carriage and stood at the front of the carriage, looking at the Beizhou city, looking at the crowd coming and going at the gate. Her beautiful face revealed a trace of gratification. With the Beizhou city, there will definitely be a bigger market to explore. That's right, miss. We finally arrived at the Beizhou city. The servant girl, Xiaoyin, smiled. Huairou Muyu nodded and suddenly frowned. Why didn't Butler Mu send someone to pick up the carriage? When Xiaoyin heard this, she immediately looked at the gate. She didn't find any trace of the Huairou family and immediately felt strange. There are several gates in the Beizhou city. Perhaps Butler Mu forgot and received us at another gate. Yimaxian said, Perhaps, but since we're already in the Beizhou city, let's not think too much. Everyone, let's go in, Huairou Muyu said. However, just as everyone was about to enter the city, Gu Gongjin, who was following behind, ran over and stopped in front of Huairou Muyu's carriage. He cupped his fists and said, Miss Huairou, since we've already arrived at the Beizhou city, please lend me your guards so that I can send this item to Yangdao City. I promised you before, so I'll do it. Huairou Muyu nodded, then picked out 2/3 of her guards and lent them to Gu Gongjin. She had already arrived at the Beizhou city, and there were still many experts from the Huairou family that Butler Mu had brought with him, so she didn't have to worry about anything. Gu Gongjin was overjoyed and immediately led his men away. Seeing that Gu Gongjin had left as scheduled, Huairou Muyu no longer had any doubts about him. After all, he had already left, so how could she still have any doubts? The carriage slowly drove into the Beizhou city. Yimaxian rode his white horse and walked in front. He looked left and right, as if he was paying attention to the bustling scene. The carriage followed behind. This is the first time we've come to the Beizhou city. Butler Mu didn't send anyone to pick us up. The Beizhou city is so big. I wonder where Huairou's mansion is. Huairou Muyu lifted the curtain and looked at the scenery outside as she said softly. Suyin didn't say anything as his gaze landed on Yimaxian in front of him. However, he seemed to be familiar with the road and actually led the carriage forward. Did Yimaxian know where Huairou's mansion was? Suyin was very curious. However, what surprised him was that after a while, the carriage actually arrived in front of the Huairou family's mansion in the Beizhou city. The mansion was located in the middle of the city. It was a huge mansion with a huge signboard hanging on the door. 2 golden words landed on the signboard, Huairou. However, at this moment, the door of the mansion was tightly closed and there was only one guard standing at the door. When he saw the carriage arrive, the guard immediately knelt down on one knee. A moment later, the door opened and some servants and maids ran out, kneeling to welcome Huairou Muyu. I didn't expect to walk blindly and actually walk to the mansion. Yimaxian smiled and said, My sister, you're tired from the journey. Hurry up and enter the mansion. Huairou Muyu walked out of the carriage and nodded slightly. She looked at the servants at the door and asked in confusion, Why haven't I seen Butler Mu yet? Perhaps it's just as I guessed. Butler Mu just went to the wrong door. Yimaxian smiled. That shouldn't be the case. Huairou Muyu frowned. If I were Butler Mu, I would definitely arrange attendants in front of every door. If we enter from this door, Butler Mu should be the first to receive the news and wait in front of the mansion. Thinking of this, Huairou Muyu felt that something was wrong. But before she could think too much about it, suddenly, a big and strong hand grabbed her arm and pulled her over. Su Yun, Huayro Muyu was shocked. When she saw her master clearly, she didn't resist, but at this moment, she was extremely angry. What are you doing? Cut the crap, let's go. Yi Maxian is going to attack you. Su Yun growled. What? Huayro Muyu was slightly stunned. Before she could think further, she saw the pedestrians on the streets in front and behind the mansion all blocking them. They all took out their magic treasures and surrounded the two of them. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.